Previously on the Vampire Diaries.
Tell him what the hunter told you the tattoo leads to. What's this great weapon that could bring about the end of the vampire species?
A cure. He said there was a cure.
Honey, listen to me. You are the key to everything.
You know, your haughty, creepy professor really knows his stuff, Bonnie.
This calls on darkness that can't exist on this plane without swallowing it whole.
It's been baby steps, but he's helping with a whole new kind of magic.
Witches don't even call it magic.
He calls
We
it
call it expression.
You're the beginning.
Channeling the power of human sacrifices.
He told me that I was a potential, that's why I could see his mark.
Jeremy, you don't want to do this, okay? That's your stupid mark on your arm.
When this mark is complete, it will contain the spell that we need to dig up Silas. You dig up Silas, and you've got your cure. When your new hunter, and I know you have one, when he completes his mark, you're gonna want to come to me. Because I'm gonna be the only one who can help. Trust me on that, okay? The only one.
Hey, 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 so sister, ain't that Mr. Behind? Shut up! Oh, hello, hi. Sorry for that bizarre intro. Was feeling a little awkies, feeling a little uncomfy. It's been a minute since you and I have caught up. It's been a minute since I've stood in front of this wall with this microphone, with this stick, and spoken to you about the Vampire Diaries. And I felt bad because, you know, that hiatus was not great. It's been 4 months. That's generous, maybe a little bit longer. But you know what? We're back. I hope you're excited. Hope you're ready to sink your teeth into season 4 of the Vampire Diaries.
I don't know why that always makes me smile.
Hey, what's up, you guys? It's me, Luke, and welcome back to another video. Or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. And you're watching Disney Channel.
Your emotions are a bit heightened.
Yes, we are back to my deep dive series into the Vampire Diaries, where I recap the episodes of the show, explore the mythology, point out the plot holes, keep track of what all of the supernatural creatures the characters are, who has died, what characters are related to each other, in relationships to each other, who turns who, all of it on my mind map, all while giving my commentary on the characters, relationships, storylines, and everything else that goes on in this magnificent show.
Why am I crying?
The Vampire Diaries is my favorite show of all time. I've been watching it since 2009, when I was 9, when it first started, and I've been rewatching it ever since. So I'm definitely well-equipped, well-versed, and well-educated in everything TVDU.
Was that necessary? No, but it was fun.
I started this a couple years ago now, and we are currently on season 4. I will put the playlist down below if you want to go ahead and check it out. I also have a sister companion series over my Patreon where we do scene breakdowns. We're currently almost halfway through season 4. We have done the first 9 episodes across 4 videos because I did have a lot to say. The beginning of season 4 marks a really big shift in the Vampire Diaries because of Elena's transition into a vampire, and also her transition from Stefan to Damon. I think it's a really big pivotal moment in the show because obviously Elena's the main character, and also this love triangle is like a crux of the show. So with all of that changing, I did talk a lot in depth over the past couple episodes because of Elena's transition, her side onto Damon, her breakup with Stefan. So definitely catch up on all those videos. Right now we're going to be getting into the action. We're going to be getting into the fun. Our crew is gearing up to find the cure to vampirism that is buried with the elusive, mysterious Silas. And that is kind of where we're going with these next couple episodes. And before we continue, I do just want to apologize because it has been 4 months since my last Vampire Diaries video posted here.
Seriously?
I'm not here to give a sob story. You guys are here to have fun, be entertained. That's the tea. But I also just have to be honest with you. And the truth of the matter is that I stopped posting these videos as frequently because they started getting a lot less views. Now, in my defense, I make well below minimum wage on these videos. These videos take about 60 hours on the low end, and I probably make $10 an hour if I'm lucky, Australian, which I think is $7 US. So it's below minimum wage. And I was just looking at the numbers, looking at how much time I was putting into it and how much I was earning. And I was like, I just need to prioritize making videos that don't take as long to make and that I earn more money on. So that's what I've been doing. But I miss this series. I really do. I feel so bad whenever I get a comment from someone asking me when the next video is coming, because I'm like, oh, this has been scripted for a couple months now and I just haven't stood here to film it because I just feel like financially this is not a smart series for me to be making, but I just love it. I really, really do. So I'm gonna try keep it going as long as I can. And obviously I don't want to ever put the responsibility on my audience, you guys watching, because these videos are for your entertainment and I'm just glad if you enjoy them. But if you really do love this series and you want me to keep continuing it, there's a couple ways that you could support the series just by like doing what you're doing now, watching it, rewatching it, re-listening to it if you want while you're doing chores, going to sleep, whatever. You know, you could give it a like, you could comment, you could share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it. You can you know, go a step further and go over to my Patreon, and you can either sign up for a monthly membership, or you can even purchase my scene breakdown videos. They're like $5 Australian, which I think is like $3 USD. I think, yeah, it's like $3 a video, and those videos are like 2 hours long, where I do like in-depth analyses of different characters and storylines. I'm a bit awkward about this because I really don't like shaking the cup, but yeah, I feel like I've been putting off filming this video because like this is the reality of the situation, and I'm just at a point in life where I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. So that is it. But anyway, uncomfortable conversation aside,
Your lack of communication is infuriating.
of course you guys know with the mind map, I'm sure we're all over it by now, but if you are new, we have our red strings which indicate romantic or sexual relationships, both past and present, and then we also have our blue strings which indicate characters that are related to each other, and finally our green strings which indicate bloodlines, like vampire bloodlines. And then when it comes to our symbols, we have our key on either side of the map. Just refer there if you're ever curious. That's pretty much it for the mind map. But before we get into my recaps and deep dive, I did just want to thank the sponsor of this video who helped make this video possible, and that is ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic developed by PhD scientists to tackle those rough mornings after a few drinks. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, actually, not dehydration, that's responsible for those rough mornings after. But if you drink ZBiotics pre-alcohol before your first drink of the night, and drink responsibly of course, then you can enjoy some drinks and still feel great the morning after. I've been using ZBiotics for a couple months now, especially whenever I'm going out for birthdays or to concerts or festivals, just any time when I'm having a couple more drinks. I take my ZBiotics before my first drink of the event, and I'm always amazed at how good I still feel the morning after. I actually finished my current box of ZBiotics, and I have to be getting more because I cannot imagine not taking ZBiotics before drinking. And because ZBiotics is sponsoring this video, if you click the link in my description, then you can get 15% off your first order at checkout with free shipping. Plus, ZBiotics offers a 100% money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied for whatever reason, but I'm sure you will be, as have I. And once again, thank you so much to ZBiotics for sponsoring this video. In today's video, we'll be covering episodes 10, 11, and 12 of season 4 of the Vampire Diaries, and I'm titling this chapter the Expression chapter / the Hunter's Mark chapter, because two pivotal parts of these next 3 episodes is Bonnie dealing with her expression magic that Atticus Shane, the professor from Whitmore College, has groomed and manipulated her into doing, because he's like using her for her magic to get to the tomb and to Silas, because he wants to resurrect Silas. And then on the other side of the map, we have Jeremy, who is trying to grow his map, aka his Hunter's Mark. Ever since Connor Jordan was killed, Jeremy became a hunter which is like part of the mystical 5, where the more vampires they kill, the more this invisible tattoo or Hunter's Mark grows on their body, and once it is complete, it will lead to the cure, which is buried with Silas. So it's all interconnected. And then we also had Atticus Shane along with Bonnie working on getting Jeremy's hunting instincts under control, so he doesn't want to kill his sister. I wanted to keep this recap short, but we're going to be getting a lot of recap just through what the characters have to say, especially because this episode that we're getting into is the mid-season premiere. So prior to this, they went on hiatus, so there's a lot of dialogue in this episode that kind of recaps everything. Of course, we ended the mid-season finale with Klaus massacring his 12 hybrids because he found out from Haley Marshall that Tyler was secretly unsiring all of his hybrids, and Haley was working with Atticus Shane, who needed 12 unsired hybrids killed, and also to get revenge on Tyler, Klaus also killed his mother. We also ended the episode with Damon breaking up with Elena, sort of basically invoking the Cyber being like, go away, this isn't good for us. Like, let's see how long that lasts. Also, Rebecca was undaggered by April Youngs. And then lastly, we had Caroline slipping the beans to Stefan that Elena and Damon have slept together. So this is gonna be a really messy mid-season premiere, followed by a bunch of messy episodes. I love season 4. There's so much to discuss. It's not one of my favorite seasons, but I think it's one of the seasons that has a lot of fun conversations. So that's why I'm making a lot more videos for season 4. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the recap. And without further ado, let's get into it, because I'm about to dive in to my deep dive into the Vampire Diaries season 4, part 5, titled The Expression / Hunter's Mark chapter, covering episodes 10, 11, and 12. first up, let's get into season 4, episode 10, titled After School Special. I love this episode so much. It's definitely up there. How many episodes in the Vampire Diaries? Like 175. This is like top 40. It's a good episode. It definitely is one that I remember and look forward to whenever I get to it. So the episode begins in Mystic Falls High School. All the students are gathered in the gym with candles everywhere for Carol Lockwood's memorial. Sheriff Liz Forbes is running it, giving a bit of a speech. And you got to think of how crazy it must be for all of the high school students, because Richard Mayor Lockwood died just the year before. So within a span of 2 years, both of their mayors died who were husband and wife. Like, that is just crazy. I don't even know what the cover-up story was for the mayor dying back at season 1, but the cover-up story for Carol Lockwood dying is that she got drunk and drowned in a fountain. So that's unfortunate, but also quite believable. Woman loved her martini. During the speech, we see Tyler's getting increasingly emotional, and he just says, screw this, gets up and leaves, and Caroline tries to stop him, but he just goes off anyway. Sheriff Liz Forbes then calls for a minute of silence, and during this minute of silence, Elena sees a blonde woman who looks very much like Rebecca smirk at her from across the hall. She does a double take, and when she looks back, Rebecca's no longer there. It's very much giving, what was that? So Elena leaves to then go and check this out. Sheriff Liz Forbes then introduces the new interim mayor, Rudy Hopkins, but we'll discuss more about him later on. We then go to the hallways where Elena hears crying and follows the sound of it to find none other than April Young, the most annoying girl at the school. And Elena's asking if she's okay, and April's like, yeah, you know, it's just the whole mayor thing brings up a lot of stuff with my dad. Her dad, who famously blew himself in the council up in the premiere of the season. And she says to Elena, also, I know that you're a vampire. Elena's shook by this, but before she can say anything, Rebecca shows up from behind her and snaps her neck. April asks if that was really necessary, and Rebecca's like, no, but it was fun. Bex is back, and she's out for revenge. It's very gaggy, and one thing about me, I love the Elena and Rebecca beef. Down another hallway in the high school, we see Caroline looking for Tyler, and she's on the phone with Stefan and says, hey, you just missed the mandatory all-school meeting assembly, and we see that he is in the grill drinking and says, well, that's because I'm at an all-mandatory drinking alone party of one. Not sure how he's just drinking in public in the grill when he's a known high school student, but I digress. We can't look too deep into it. But Caroline on the other line says, seriously, you decided to go on a ripper bender now? Not sure how this is a ripper bender because he's drinking alcohol, not blood, but alcohol curbs the cravings, unless she thinks the drinking party of one means he's feeding on people, but why would he tell her that? Anyway, she's a sober coach, but she's got a lot on her plate right now. And Stefan says, well, my brother slept with Lena, kind of puts a bit of a damper on things. Which, I mean, yeah, sure, but like, we can't fully be surprised. You just think that Elena was sleeping over at the Salvatore house and nothing was happening. You saw her the next day, Stefan. You saw the scarf. You saw the messy bun. When does Elena not have that hair straightened? You should have known something was up, but you were trying to live in ignorance as bliss. Let's be real. Caroline says, first of all, you're not supposed to know that, remember? Second of all, Tyler's already spiraling and he gets priority. Like I said, she's got a lot on her plate, so her subtext is basically like, I need to take pause from your issues today. You're kind of gonna have to deal with this one on your own, okay? And Stefan's like, well, his mother just died. What did you expect? And Caroline's like, I'm his girlfriend. I would expect that he would talk to me. But instead, he's all angry, and it doesn't help that everyone keeps referring to his mother's death as an accident, which is really just a polite way of saying that she was drunk. And Stefan's like, so do you think Klaus killed her? And Caroline's like, well, I don't think she drowned in her martini glass. So yeah, they don't even need to know that Klaus killed her. It's just pretty freaking obvious. I mean, it's Klaus. He's reckless, and his go-to whenever somebody betrays him is kill their family. Caroline says, just get it together, okay? I can't do this alone. And she hangs up. She's fed up with Stefan, and rightly so. He really needs to start pulling his weight in this friendship. We then go to the library with Elena, who wakes up after getting her neck snapped, and April is standing in front of her and says, the assembly's over. The whole school will be empty soon. Elena asks what's going on, and April asks how many times she compelled her. But before Elena can answer, April says, and don't lie. Rebecca says you lie. Well, technically, everyone's been lying to April, including Rebecca, but now Rebecca's the one who revealed the truth, so she's got this, like, undeaded loyalty to her. Also, they're both loners, so... Elena says Rebecca's not who you think she is. And April's like, what? She's not a 1,000-year-old original vampire? And it's like, no, April, we know that. Elena means she's a bitch. She's not your friend like you think she is. But there's not enough time for Elena to unpack all the horrible things that Rebecca's done. So she just grabs April's arm and says, we gotta get out of here. But then Rebecca shows up in front of her and says, you're not going anywhere, and compels Elena to take a seat because the rest of the class will be here shortly. So Rebecca's about to enact her revenge. And also, I don't know why Elena isn't taking vervain. I guess maybe because the council blew it all up, but surely they can find some, because otherwise shit like this will happen. None of this would have happened today if our characters had been consuming vervain. Gotta thank the council for blowing it up. It does create a lot of obstacles. We then go over to the Gilbert Lake house to check in with Jeremy. We then go over to the Gilbert Lake house to check in on team finish Jeremy's hunter's mark. Jeremy and Matt are sparring, training, and we see over on the dock on the lake that Damon is listening to a voice call from Elena, remembering that he chose to send Elena away and stay here to help Jeremy. So on the voicemail, Elena says, "It's me. Look, I know why you sent me away. You think that what I'm feeling for you is because of the sire bond, but I hate not being near you." And then Damon just hangs up, doesn't even finish the voicemail. He's like, "Yep, that's enough of that." Damon walks over to Jeremy, who tells Matt to make a move, but Matt's like, "I drove up here to be your wingman, not kick your ass." And honestly, Matt, it's cute that you think that you could do that because Jeremy's a supernatural hunter and he's a lot buffer than you. So Jeremy proceeds to beat Matt's ass, and it's quite funny. And he asks Damon, "Did you see that?" Like really impressed, like looking for his big brother's approval. And Damon's like, "Couldn't miss it. It was in slow motion." And Jeremy's like, "Well, then teach me something useful. We've been here for days, and so far all you've done is bark orders." So Damon grabs a steak and throws it to Jeremy, tells Matt to take a seat, because Karate Kid wants a shot at the tiger. Fun little reference to Damon's Mr. Miyagi. Jeremy runs towards Damon and swings the steak at his head. Damon ducks and disarms Jeremy and then grabs him by the throat, strangling him, saying, "Now all I have to do is apply a little pressure under your jaw and snap." And it was just a really weak move from Jeremy because of course Damon was going to be able to intercept it because it's not like Jeremy runs that fast. The best thing you can do with a vampire is an element of surprise. So clearly this shows that Jeremy still needs a lot more training before he's put out there to hunt a bunch of vampires. A pizza delivery car then arrives and Damon lets Jeremy out of his headlock, and a girl comes over with a pizza saying, "Double pepperoni 3 days in a row. You guys eat anything else?" She's putting the flirt on, and for some reason Matt gives her this disgusting grin. We then hear a whoosh and Damon shows up behind her and says, "Why are you offering?" She's spooked, but he pays her a fat wad of cash and says, "A little something extra to cut off the pizza pipeline for a couple days. No matter how much they beg, don't come back." She says sorry to the boys, gets in her truck, and drives off. And Jeremy's like, "What? So now you're gonna starve us?" And Damon's like, "If that's what it takes to make you a hunter, then yes. Now run around the lake twice." So Jeremy leaves, and Damon tells Matt to do the same thing. And Matt's like, "I don't have to listen to you." And Damon's like, "You do if you want to eat." So Matt runs off. I love how Damon's bossing these boys around. Damon then takes out his phone and finishes listening to Elena's voicemail, where she says, "Being near you, and I miss you, Damon, and I wish you would just let me come to you." She's sounding very desperado. Ugh, her Cyberborn era is really not a fun time for her character. If you didn't see my previous video on the Vampire Diaries, definitely check it out, because I'm not going to get into the Cyberborn that much in this episode. Like, obviously we'll talk about it, but I went in depth before, because I hate the Cyberborn, so... If you want my full opinions about the lack of agency and how I think it's a bad writing choice, etc., etc., it's all going to be in that previous video. We then go back to the grill where Stefan is drinking his sorrows away, and he gets a phone call and is like, "What?" And it's Rebecca who says, "Guess who? I'm back, dagger-free, and I'm holding Elena hostage at the high school. Just thought you should know." Because remember, at this point, Rebecca's been daggered in a box since episode 4, so she thinks that Stefan and Elena are still together. She's missed so much, and she's going to have a lot of fun catching up with everyone today. Stefan's like, "Ugh, who the hell was dumb enough to pull that dagger out of you?" Well, April Young was dumb enough to do that, that's who. And Rebecca's like, "I'll be asking the questions today, thank you. See you soon." And she hangs up. Stefan then calls Caroline, who says, "I'm only ready to talk to you if you're ready to rejoin civilization." And Stefan's like, "Well, how would you like to drive the white oak stake through Rebecca's heart?" I think this is really interesting considering in episode 3 of this season, Stefan stopped Elena from killing Rebecca, saying it wasn't going to make her feel better and it would just kill off hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent other vampires because of her bloodline. And now he's just willing to do it so easily. He's really down bad. As Stefan leaves, still inside the grill, we catch up with Sheriff Liz Forbes, who is sitting with Rudy Hopkins. So Rudy Hopkins is a new character. He is Bonnie's father. I will touch on that when we get our first scene with him and Bonnie. So Liz Forbes says to Rudy Hopkins, "So, first speech under your belt." Yeah, he had a speech at the school. I skipped it. Now for the fun part. "Welcome to the world of careful cover-ups. We've ruled Carol's death a head trauma from a fall. That's the official autopsy." And she slid a file across the table to Rudy that has pictures of Carol's, like, bleeding head, we can only assume. Like, the autopsy right there. So much for a cover-up. Why are you looking at this in the grill? Why are you looking at this in public? Like, go talk about this in your office. It's so goofy. This is arguably the most popular place in town, and you're talking about arguably the most secretive thing in town. But I digress. We know law enforcement in the show sucks, like it does in most of the world. Rudy says, "Oh, she did not go gently, did she? Are there any leads?" And Liz is like, "Yeah, we got a couple ideas." So maybe she's suspecting Klaus as well. But she's not going to let Rudy know about original vampires. That's like a whole nother level that he's not going to be privy to just yet. So he just says, "Let me guess, sharp teeth and bad table manners?" Little vampire joke. But you know, I wouldn't say it's accurate because Klaus Klaus probably has really amazing table manners considering he was alive when they were invented. Liz asks Rudy if he's sure that he wants this job because 6 people were offered the job before him and they all said no for a reason. Damn, 7th in line, that's a bit of a slap in the face. And he's not even a founding family member, and you know they went to all the founders first, so they all said no, so they went to him. I wonder what made them go in his direction. And why would he take it? Because it's a cursed role. Well, now we know, because Rudy says, I'm saying yes for a reason, and my reason just walked in. He waves, and we see that he's waving at Bonnie, and the sheriff gets up and leaves, and Bonnie sits down and says, hey, Dad. So obviously now we know that that's her father, which is interesting because we only met Bonnie's mother in season 3. We knew that she was like living with her dad, but also living with her grams and being taken care of by her grams. But her grams died in season 1. And now we're meeting her dad in season 4. Julie Plec, you really just don't give a shit about Bonnie's family tree. Like, she was just living alone this whole time as a 17/18-year-old. And we know that he was never around because she says far cry from being a traveling pharmaceutical rep. So that's why he was never here for his daughter, because he was just like running around selling people pills. Like, does he even know everything that's been going on in Bonnie's life? He's so neglectful. But anyway, Rudy says, I noticed a few of your friends are missing from the assembly. So much for mandatory, I guess. And Bonnie's like, Dad, stop it. You can't just come in here and stop making rules. Well, yeah, girl, he can. That's kind of like the whole point about being a mayor. But I get the sentiment. And seriously, at this point, Rudy, what difference do you really think you're going to make? But he's got energy. You know, he's got a bit of pep in his step. Bonnie says, you're forgetting I can protect this town. And he says, I'm well aware of your gifts, Bonnie. Obviously, we know Bonnie gets her witch lineage from her mother's side of the family, and the way he says gifts, you can tell he's not like a big fan of her being a witch. And Rudy says, but don't forget I'm your father, and that means I get to protect you. Sure, like you've protected her these past couple years. She's almost died multiple times. Also, if you're protecting her, do you know about the professor that's actively grooming her and teaching her black magic? If not worse than that, witches don't even call it magic, they call it expression. Like, so much for a protective father. Your daughter's literally being groomed and you don't even know. Back at the high school, we see Caroline walking in the hallways, looking inside classrooms that are all empty, and we see that she's holding the white oak stake in one hand, not even hidden, like the one weapon that can kill an original. She texts Stefan saying the 2nd floor is clear, and then she hears a whoosh behind her, so there's a vampire speeding around, but she doesn't see who. In other hallways, presumably on the 1st floor, Stefan reads her text, and someone vamp speeds past him too, without him seeing. But obviously he knows it's Rebecca, and he texts Caroline and says, she's on the 1st floor. I'll distract her so you can stake her. I'm not sure why you guys think staking Rebecca is going to be so easy, and also why you think that this would be a good idea. Would you really want to face the wrath of Klaus? Come on. They're really not thinking. This plan makes no sense. The whole thing just seems like a massive oversight. But anyway, while he's texting, Rebecca appears in front of him, and he asks her what she wants, and she says, the same thing I wanted from you when you helped Niklaus dagger me. Stefan says, the cure. And he vamp speeds Rebecca against the locker, pinning her to it, and she says, I hope you're not waiting for Caroline to show up and stake me because I already found her. And she lifts up the stake, and Stefan's like, well shit, and gives up. Like, doesn't even try and grab the stake to stake Rebecca. Anyway, Rebecca then enters the library with Stefan, and he goes to sit at a table with Elena and Caroline and April, and Rebecca starts her fun. She says, class is in session, you've all been compelled, you know the rules, answer my questions honestly, no disobedience, and no one leaves. Oh, and April, sweetheart, take some notes. This is how you get answers in this town. Let's start with a little quiz, and this is how we're going to get a lot of our recap of what's gone down this season, so it's good for the viewers when we were watching it live, because there was a month hiatus from this to the previous episode, but also good for you guys, because I've been on a 4-month hiatus. So she says, in the year 1014, my brother learned, thanks to yours truly, about the Brotherhood of the Five, supernatural vampire hunters with tattoos that grew with each kill. And these tattoos revealed what, Elena? And Elena says, a map. And Rebecca says, which led to Caroline? Caroline says, a cure for vampirism. And Rebecca says, perfect, so we're all caught up. She then says to Stefan, Rebecca then says to Stefan, the last time we saw each other, you had a vampire hunter, but in order to decode the map, you needed the location of the hunter's sword, which you got out of me using some very dirty tricks. Well, the tricks was really just playing on your emotions and you made it too easy, but I digress. Rebecca says, assuming you found the sword, you must have found the cure, and yet you're all still vampires, which means something went wrong. Rebecca gets distracted by April, who's vigorously writing, and asks what she's doing, and April's like, you asked me to take notes, and Rebecca's like, I wasn't being literal, darling. But now that you mention it, a flowchart would be nice, which means we need index cards and push pins. Go fetch. And April runs along. She's like literally become Rebecca's lapdog, her assistant, and I bet you Rebecca's not even compelling her. April is just that desperate for a friend. It's honestly sad, but also extremely funny. But let's see if April can make a better mind map than me. Stefan then tells Rebecca that she's wasting her time because they don't know anything. And Rebecca's like, what? So you just gave up? I thought you'd do anything for Elena, even if it meant taking the cure yourself so you would grow old and die with her. Obviously, this is what he said when him and Elena were together, but things have changed. And everyone's looking really uncomfortable. It's super awkward. And Rebecca's clocking all these looks, says to Elena, why do you look so surprised? She doesn't answer. And Rebecca says, I'm missing something. What is it? There's an awkward silence, and Caroline breaks the ice and says, they broke up, okay? Now let us go. Rebecca gets a huge grin on her face because obviously she still has a thing for Stefan, and also her biggest joy in life is seeing Elena be miserable. She preys on Elena's downfall, but what she doesn't realize is Elena's actually getting what she wants. Anyway, Rebecca says, broke up? Wait, I'm confused. I thought Elena was your epic love, Stefan. Stefan doesn't say anything, and Rebecca's like, I asked you what happened, and you have to tell me. So Stefan says, she slept with Damon. Gag. Bomb drop. Obviously, Elena does not know that Stefan knows this, and she knows the only way he could have known this is by Caroline telling him, and she asked Caroline not to tell Stefan because she wanted to tell Stefan. So Caroline looks ashamed. Elena looks pissed. We then go back to the Gilbert Lake house where Jeremy loads a gun and shows it to Damon, who grabs it, undoes the gun, and says, now do it like your life depends on it, because it does. Jeremy's like, don't act like you care about my life. You care about getting my hunter's mark and curing Elena so she's not sired to your ass anymore. And Damon's like, fair, because you know this is true. And so he says, yeah, well, both require you being alive, which is why I've updated our relationship status to it's complicated. And Jeremy's like, maybe? Why? Running out of voicemails to listen to? It's a bit awkward. One thing about me, I do love the brotherly banter between Damon and Jeremy. It's always been something I've enjoyed in the show. The tension is then broken when Klaus shows up all of a sudden and says, I'm sorry, did I interrupt playtime? Jeremy asks what the hell he's doing there, and Klaus says, I'm simply appreciating the sights and smells of nature, neither of which presently include rotting vampire flesh. So I'm a bit concerned. How many vampires has he killed? He says to Damon, and Damon's like, well, if we throw Jeremy out into the world right now, he's chum. And Klaus says, see, that's not a number. 12, that's a number. That's how many of my hybrids I slaughtered with my sword. 3, that's how many days it took to urge the Quell to kill your brother after he knowingly watched as I walked into a death trap. 1, that's the number of purposes you serve. Klaus, coming out of the gate, slaying, eating with his lines. Joseph Morgan, he's gonna slay every time with his line delivery. This is why I can't wait till we get to the originals, because they are serving bars and poetry on that show. The Michelsons just have such a flair for the dramatics, and I love it. And that's why I really do love these next 3 episodes, because we get a lot of Michelson banter. Elijah is missing though, unfortunately. It doesn't quite feel the same without him, but we might see him later on. Klaus goes on saying, you are here to grow Jeremy's mark, so I ask once again, how many vampires have been killed since he was here? Damon confidently says in Klaus's face, 0. And Klaus smiles and says, that's a pity. I'm gonna need that cure sooner rather than later, hybrid shortage and all. How can I help? Wow, after all that, Klaus is just gonna make a bunch of new hybrids. Obviously, remember Klaus's motivation is he wants Elena cured so he can use her doppelganger blood to make more hybrids. It's really about time Klaus gives up on those damn hybrids. You've had 3 bad batches that have all had to be wiped. The first lot of hybrids that Klaus turned in the beginning of season 3 died instantly because he didn't know how to turn them properly. He didn't know he needed doppelganger blood. The second lot all got killed one by one like flies when Stefan had his humanity off and he was in his revenge situation. And the third lot got slaughtered by you, Klaus. 3 strikes and you're out. I don't think the 4th lot is going to magically work out for you. And even if they are loyal to you and stay sorry to you, you never train them, so they get picked off like flies. And we all know that there's a shortage of werewolves. Anyways, I digress. Damon says, you know what, now that you mention it, Jeremy, watch and learn. He quickly loads the gun and shoots Klaus 3 times in the heart. He obviously doesn't die, but it hurts. And Damon says, that's for Carol Lockwood. Because one thing about Damon is he loves the middle-aged women of Mystic Falls, so this bothered him. Rightly so. R.I.P. Carol Lockwood. Back in the high school library, Rebecca says, so Vampire Lane is a trollop who likes bad boys, which... I love her. Which explains why Stefan reeks of alcohol. But what it doesn't explain is why sweet, loving, innocent Elena could be so heartless towards Stefan. How could she hurt you like that? Answer, please. So Stefan does, because he's compelled, and says she didn't know it at the time, but she was sired to Damon. Rebecca's intrigued by this because the plot thickens. She sits down between the two of them and says, a sire bond. Fascinating. She looks to Elena and says, and what do you think about that? She's really in her therapy bag, but Elena does clock her, as she often does. This time it doesn't quite work though, because Rebecca's drunk with power, but she tries anyway and says, I think you're sad and bored and desperate and in need of a hobby. Rebecca compels Elena and says, you're hiding something, fess up. And so Elena does, and it gets messy. She says, I didn't sleep with Damon because of the sire bond. I slept with Damon because I'm in love with him. Elena's shocked that she was forced to admit this. Caroline's gagged, and Stefan looks heartbroken. Stefan takes a lot of stabs to the heart in this episode. It's rough for him. It really is. After some awkward silence, Caroline cuts it like she keeps doing this episode and says, what does any of this have to do with the stupid cure anyway? Rebecca's like, you're right. We got a little bit off track. Stefan, how do I find the cure? Unless you'd rather talk about Damon and Elena all day. And of course, Stefan doesn't. So he says, there's a professor. He knows where the cure is. And Rebecca's like, no, where can I find this professor? Well, we go over to Whitmore College to see Professor Atticus Shane in his office, and he's listening to Bonnie, who is pacing around, confiding in him about her issues with her father. So it's no longer just teaching her magic, like she's emotionally invested in this, and he's allowing her. A grooming 101. So Bonnie's ranting about her dad and is like, oh, so now I'm gifted? He hates my witch heritage. That's why he travels all the time. He can't handle it. And suddenly he wants to be a protective father? No, not like this. She tries to calm down and says, come on, distract me. Isn't there some sort of like magic therapy you haven't shown me yet? And Shane says, listen, Bonnie, I hate to tell you this. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I'm proud to tell you this. You don't need my help anymore. In fact, and he pulls out a necklace, a very hideous necklace, and gives it to Bonnie and says, happy graduation. She says it's beautiful. It's really not. And he says it's human bone. She's like, ugh. And he says, legend says it was worn by the 2,000-year-old witch, Ketsia, who drew on it for strength. Bonnie, you have come so far, so fast. If you trust my opinion, your magic is exactly where it needs to be. Funny thing for a man who's not even teaching her magic. Bonnie asks if this means that she has to go home now. And he says, it means I got a stack of papers I got to grade by tomorrow. And she's like, I can take a hint. And she thanks him and goes to leave. When she's walking in the hallway, a man smiles at her, but he looks really familiar. And he goes into Professor Shane's office, and then Bonnie realizes, oh my God, Cole. So yes, the man that walked into Shane's office was Cole, and we hear a crash and a break, and when Bonnie goes in Atticus Shane's office, the window is broken and he and Cole are no longer there. So Cole is back on the scene. We haven't seen Cole since season 3, episode 19. Pretty much she just shows up and does Klaus's bidding and gets up to mischief, and we're going to see him for these next couple episodes, and now we're going to get the full effect of Cole. He's going to be very messy. These next 3 episodes are very like originals focused, so I really like that. We then go over to the Lockwood mansion where Tyler is alone drinking. You know, he's depressed. His mother died. He gets a phone call from Caroline and answers it saying, I told you I don't want to talk. Well, don't answer the phone then, and also don't be rude to your girlfriend. But it's Rebecca on the phone and says, I heard you're keeping all that rage bottled up inside. Caroline's worried sick about you. Obviously, Tyler's shook because he thought that Rebecca was daggered. And he's like, Rebecca? And she says, hello, Tyler. I heard my brother made a real mess of your life. Believe me, I can relate. You have my condolences. In fact, why don't you come over to the high school so you can accept them in person? And Tyler's like, well, why the hell would I do that? And Rebecca says, because I have your girlfriend. And maybe you'd have a better shot at saving her than you did your mother. Bye now. Rebecca woke up and chose hatred. There is so much venom and vitriol in her words today, but I can't help but love it. She's so gaggy. Tyler rage quits and smashes his phone. Classic behavior for him, and honestly warranted in this case. Back at the library, Cole then enters and says to Rebecca, look at you, sister. You're even worse than Klaus. Is she? Klaus just killed 12 people and the mayor / someone's mother. But Rebecca asks if Cole brought what she asked for, and Cole pulls Shane into the library. Back at the Gilbert Lake house, it's nighttime now, and Damon is sitting by a fire whittling some steaks when Klaus comes from behind him, and Damon says, if you're here for payback, go for it, but you'll be stuck babysitting the little hunter that could. But Klaus just sits next to him and critiques his whittling skills, and Damon says, now I know why those hybrids hated you. You're so annoying. You know, just a simple classic dig. And Klaus says, actually, I'm just perplexed as to why Jeremy hasn't killed any vampires, and Damon tells him Jeremy needs to be able to protect himself before we hunt down his first vampire nest. And Klaus says, here I was thinking you were the fun brother. Now let's play a little game, shall we? Jeremy needs more victims, and there's a whole town of people down the road just waiting to be turned into vampires for the slaughter. And Damon's like, you didn't think that occurred to me? And Klaus is like, the tragedy is, Damon, it did occur to you, yet you chose to ignore it. And my guess is you did it to impress Elena. Somehow to honor her, you'll find a way to spare the innocent lives and walk Jeremy down the moral high ground. Which is a great read, because typically Damon would just turn a bunch of humans into vampires and do it the most quick and efficient way, but he cares about Elena's opinion, and she doesn't want him to do horrible things. But let's be real, it's Elena, she'll just forgive him, and also she's shy, so he could just make her forgive him. But it's good that she changes him and makes him want to be a better person. So Klaus just says, that's why I've already made the necessary corrections. And Damon's like, what did you do? And Klaus just smiles. And honestly, why did you think Klaus would just show up and not take matters into his own hands, Damon? That's on you. So we see what Klaus does, because we go to the lake house where the pizza delivery girl knocks on the door, and Matt answers it and says, says, don't tell me he ordered another pizza. But she just says that she ran out of gas a mile back and her phone's dead, so can she borrow his? Classic vampire trick of the trade, and we get confirmation she is a vampire when Matt tells her to come on in and wait inside as he goes and grabs her phone. But she's blocked by the barrier because she can't get in because Jeremy owns the house. She hasn't been invited in. So obviously Klaus turned her and compelled her to go and attack them. Jeremy then comes to the front door, sees her, gets the lowdown, and tells her she's welcome to wait inside. He's just gonna go have a shower. And he goes upstairs and she's like, thanks, and gives a smirk. I really love this whole pizza delivery girl turned into a vampire. It's a very nice homage to season 1. I don't remember which episode, but the episode where they have the decade dance where that pizza delivery guy got invited into the house by Jeremy and then he tried to attack Elena. So I really love in these couple episodes how we kind of go back to the roots of the show with like vampires trying to come in the house and they're not invited in and all that kind of stuff. It feels very like, I don't know, fresh beginnings, recalls, full circle, all that kind of stuff. Back at the high school, Rebecca and Cole push Shane into a broom closet and he's like, Cole and Rebecca Michelson, 2 members of the original family, this is such a trip. He's like fangirling over them. Rebecca tries to compel Shane to tell her where the cure is and he says compulsion won't work. It's a little trick I picked up in Tibet. It's very much giving Bill Forbes who learned how to avoid compulsion, but the thing about avoiding compulsion is you should use that to your advantage by not telling vampires you can't be compelled. Just lie, because they'll think that you're being compelled and they can check your blood for vervain and it won't be in there. Like, use your freaking brain. Because of course they're going to just resort to other measures. And Rebecca says, looks like we're going to have to do it the old fashioned way. And she says to Cole, beat him till he fesses up. And she says to Cole, beat him until he tells you where to find it. Rebecca then enters the library and says, still glued to your seats? Oh, it's thick with tension in here. Let's spice it up a little bit. Elena, truth or dare? You know, Rebecca's never been invited to a sleepover and she just wants to have a bit of fun. She's like using them like her little dolls. I love it. And Stefan says, we're done playing your stupid games, Rebecca. But the thing is, you're not, because you are compelled, so you have to do what she says. And Elena picks dare, as if that's going to make a difference, because Rebecca says, I dare you to tell Stefan the truth about Damon. That's like a classic thing that you do in Truth and Dare where you want to get an answer out of somebody. I love it. And Caroline's just like, seriously? Because things are spiraling out of control. And Elena's like, being with Damon makes me happy. She tries to be vague as to not hurt Stefan's feelings, but of course that's not enough, because Rebecca says, makes you happy, Elena? Clowns make you happy. Dig a little deeper. Who actually gets happy from clowns? I thought we were all scared of clowns. She should have said like puppies or something. So Elena digs deeper and says, when I'm with Damon, it feels unpredictable, like I'm free. And Rebecca's like, what does it feel like when you're with Stefan? And Caroline's like, stop. And Rebecca's like, she can't. She's compelled. So Elena says, lately, Stefan, it feels like I'm a project, like I'm a problem that he needs to fix. I think I make him sad. And I can't be with someone like that because when he looks at me, all he sees is a broken toy. And whoop, ooh, is that really not the crux of the issue? But at the same time, it's like you were struggling with being a vampire because you didn't know that you were side to Damon, who was telling you that you could only feed on fresh blood from the vein. You couldn't feed on blood bags or animal blood. Whereas if like that, we know what that is now. So if we could like undo that, then you could feed on animals, then you would be able to control your hunger, and then it wouldn't be an issue in your relationship that you're a vampire. The real issue though is not about you being struggling with vampirism and struggling with all that. The real issue is that now your feelings for Damon are magnified. The feelings that you were pushing down when you were human, you can't push to the side anymore. And also as a vampire, you're probably just more of a match to Damon than you are to Stefan. So I don't know. I can see why she thinks that Stefan looks at her like a broken toy, especially because he was trying so hard to get her to feed on animal blood. And then now he's trying so hard to get the cure for her because he thinks it'll just magically make her back to who she was before she was turned into a vampire, when like it's not going to undo all of that. You know what I mean? So I can see why she feels this way. And it is a pretty accurate read. Being with Damon makes her feel free and spontaneous, whereas being with Stefan makes her feel like broken and like something that needs to be fixed. It makes sense. But unfortunately, this is going to hurt Stefan's feelings. And it's sad because all Stefan was trying to do was help Elena stay alive and help her be the kind of vampire that caused the least amount of harm, which is what she wanted. This is why I hate the Cybermon. It just really muddies the water. Okay, I'm just looking at my notes and I wrote a freaking dissertation here. Lo and behold, it's because of your Cybermon. So excuse him for trying to help you with something you wanted help with. Now, I will say after you broke up with Stefan, him getting Jeremy to kill vampires and fully activate hunter mode without telling you was wrong. And yeah, maybe he wanted the cure for you more than you wanted it for yourself. And that's not great because he thinks if he cures you to being human that the Cyberbond's broken and you'll get back together and things will go back to normal, but it's not that simple, of course. But also, you made Stefan sad because you emotionally cheated on him and soft launched a breakup, and then right after that got with his brother. Oh, I was really on my defense Stefanish when I was scripting this episode. But anyway, Rebecca then asks Elena if she still loves Stefan, and Elena confidently says yes. And Rebecca says, are you still in love with Stefan? Because of course there is a difference. And Elena says no. And Stefan looks like he wants to die. He looks like he wants to take off his daylight ring and stand in the sun. It's so sad and I feel so freaking bad for him. I really do. It really breaks my heart. Oh, but honestly, it is good that Stefan knows this so that he can like fully move on, because he was really holding on to hope, and Elena's basically like, yeah, like there is no hope. Rebecca says to Stefan, did that hurt, having someone you love drive a dagger through your heart? And Stefan says, go to hell. And Rebecca says, welcome to the last 900 years of my life. Rebecca, girl, not everything's about you. And it's a little bit different because your brother's the one who keeps daggering you. And this is Stefan's girlfriend. So I don't know what you mean by that. You might want to reassess your relationship with your brother. Unless she means her failed romantic relationships. Which then I guess, like, she is pretty unlucky in love. But then that also goes back to Cloud, because he keeps killing her lovers or making them forget about her or daggering her. And also, girl, let's just be real, your pick is off. When you fell for Stefan, his humanity was off. You're obsessed with this dropkick loser quarterback football player, Matt Donovan, who wants nothing to do with you. And then you fell in love with a vampire hunter when you were an original vampire. So some of that is on you. But I think also part of this, besides Rebecca hating Elena and wanting to hurt her, is she wants to hurt Stefan, because she really opened up to Stefan back in episode 4 and she trusted him, and then he betrayed her. So this is a pretty solid form of revenge for her. This is all interrupted when Tyler comes into the library and Rebecca says, oh, good, you're here. It was just starting to get depressing. Girl, I think that ship sailed a while ago. Tyler asks what's going on, because this obviously looks really weird, and Rebecca tells everyone, listen to the rules carefully. Stay in the building, no vamp running in the hallways. And Caroline's like, why would we be vamp running in the hallways? And Rebecca smiles and compels Tyler to turn. And Caroline's like, but he can't, he'll lose control. Which, Caroline, girl, you're smart. Like, duh, that's the point. And Rebecca says, I know, but I've exhausted all your knowledge. Now I have the professor to help me find the cure, and you're just all competition. Whoever finds it first gets to decide what to do with it. Use it, share it, destroy it, save it. I want that to be me. Tyler says, but if I turn, I'll kill them. Once again, duh, that is quite literally the point. And Rebecca says, yes, you will. And she compels him to turn again, and she leaves, and the gang's all like, well, shit. Tyler's about to turn into a wolf and rip us to shreds. But unless they get their head ripped off or their heart pulled out, they should be fine, because Klaus's original hybrid blood is the cure to a werewolf bite, and we know that he will give it to our gang. He's in love with Caroline. He needs Elena to be human to use it to make more hybrids, and Stefan's his bestie / his lover boy on the side. So I wouldn't be too worried if I was them. Then again, I guess I don't want to get ripped up by a wolf. We then go back to the Gilbert Lake house. Matt's upstairs, still looking for his phone, and he hears the voice of the girl, the pizza girl from behind him, and she sounds really creepy, and she's like, did you find your phone? He turns around, and she vamp speeds to him, pinning him to the ground, trying to bite him, but luckily, Jeremy shows up and stakes her, which is really unfortunate. It kind of sucks. If Jeremy was in the shower, Matt would have died, and we all would have been a lot happier, but anyway, I digress. Also, shouldn't that Jeremy with his hunter skills have sensed she was a vampire? Isn't that like part of it? Like, is that a plot hole? Anyway, I don't know. Damon then walks into the room slowly and looks at Jeremy as Jeremy looks at his arm, and his tattoo begins to grow because he killed a vampire, but they still can't see it. It's still invisible to the untrained vampire hunter eye. Back at the high school in a science lab, Bonnie enters where she finds April still looking for the supplies that Rebecca sent her out for. Like, girl, how long does it take? It's a school. There should be push pins. There should be push pins and sticky tabs everywhere, but I digress. April asks Bonnie how she knew everyone was here, and Bonnie's like, who's everyone? I'm here looking for Shane. And April's like, did you do a GPS magical spell or something? Bonnie's surprised, and April thinks she's gagging her. Like, yeah, Rebecca told me everything. I know that you're a witch. And Bonnie's like, Rebecca? Because to her knowledge, she's daggered in a coffin. And April says, yeah, Rebecca has Stefan, Elena, and Caroline compelled. She's getting them to actually tell the truth for a change. April, respectfully, girl, no one cares about your problems, and then people compel you left and right. Like, you're the main character in your own story. She's just so annoying this episode, and Bonnie doesn't have time for her. She's like, she goes to leave, and April's like, where are you going? And Bonnie's like, Shane can't be compelled. Rebecca will happily torture information out of him. And Bonnie starts looking through cupboards, and April asks what she's looking for, and Bonnie says salt. So April's like, oh, I think I saw some. She finds it and gives it to Bonnie, and Bonnie holds out the necklace that Shane gave her, and Bonnie's like, this pendant will connect me to Shane so that I can do a protection spell. And we see that the salt-filled beakers light on fire, and we go over to Shane, who's being waterboarded by Cole, who's asking him, where's the cure? But of course, Shane's not budging. And then we see April start to cough. Bonnie doesn't really clock it straight away. Back to Cole, Rebecca then comes in, and Rebecca asks Shane, why do you want the cure anyway? You're human. And Shane says, that's the beauty of it. You can have the cure. I just want Silas. This perks Cole's ears, and he says, what do you know of Silas? And Shane says, it's just that he's the world's first immortal being who just happens to be in prison with the cure, and I want to free him. Cole yells no and drowns Shane again, and we go back to April, who's now coughing up water, and Bonnie's confused confused, so obviously she's accidentally linked April's life to Shane's. But back to Shane, Rebecca pulls him out and tells Cole to stop, saying he's no use to them dead. And Cole says, "Did you not hear what he said? Silas will kill us all, sister." And he seems really scared. The first person we've seen who is actually scared of Silas. And it's really interesting because he's an original. Originals can't be killed by anything besides the white-eyed snake. So why would he be afraid of someone like Silas? And this is really good because so far information on Silas has been really vague and he's supposed to be our big bad. So it's good to have a character who's scared of him so that us as the audience can like feel like Silas is an actual threat. But Rebecca doesn't care. She says, "Silas does not exist. He's a fairy tale made up to scare children into eating their vegetables." And Shane says, "Oh, Silas is very real, and I know where he's buried, and soon I'll have the spell that wakes him." Shane, you're really not helping your case. Cole says, "You're lying. You can't get him without his," and Shane interrupts him saying, "Tombstone? Dozens to die in a blood sacrifice? Believe me, I know. I've done it. Those massacres were a pain to engineer." So this is confirmation that he's behind the massacres, even though like we already knew that because we saw all of his wheeling and dealings with Haley to go to the hybrids killed, but like our gang doesn't quite know that yet. Although they should have been able to put two and two together, but I really don't have time to deal with this stupidity. Rebecca says, "You're the one who got the council blown up," and Shane says, "It was a noble sacrifice and temporary because once I raise Silas, Silas will raise the dead. He will bring back every lost soul who's died on his behalf." So obviously we found out in the last episode that Shane lost his wife and son, so this explains his motivation for wanting to wake Silas is he wants to bring his wife and son back to life. Cole then grabs a broom, breaks it in half, and vanities over to Shane, stabbing him in the stomach. And we go back to April, who has the same wound, and he's freaking out. We go back to Shane, who falls to the ground and dies. And then we go back to Bonnie, looking at April, and she's like putting it all together, like, oh, I connected April's life to Shane's. Shit. Because this is a spell that Shane taught her. But remember, she doesn't quite know that what he's teaching her is evil. She's about to find out. She's about to get a rude awakening. Back to the library where Tyler is starting to turn into a wolf, breaking bones, saying that he can fight it, but Stefan, Elena, and Caroline don't look too confident, and Tyler realizes, you know what? Actually, I can't fight this. And he yells at them to go. So they run. Stefan and Elena go in one direction, and Caroline's like, nah, I'm on my own, and she goes in another direction. Anyways, Elena and Stefan get through another hallway, close that door, but they say the door is not going to hold him. Then we go over to Tyler, get a close-up of his face, see his eyes and his teeth, so he's fully in wolf form, and he starts running, and it's really fun. We haven't seen a wolf in a while, and he slams into the door that Elena and Stefan are behind. They're trying to hold it back. Stefan shoves a fire axe through the handle, but Tyler is pushing against it. Elena rips a locker off of its door, shoves it through the handle, but Tyler continues to shove against the door. Stefan ram against the door, which then hits Tyler, and we hear it goes silent. So we think they're good for now. Back in the broom closet, Cole and Rebecca are looking at dead Shane, and Cole says, "You should be thanking me." And Rebecca's like, "Thanking you, you just killed my chance of getting the cure." And Cole tells her, "Silas on the loose would be hell on earth. And frankly, sister, I don't think you could handle it." He shows her the white oak stake, and she asks how we got that, and he says, "Too easily. You obviously have your guard down, sister. And girl, you should be guarding the stake with your life, because it's the only thing that can take your life." Anyway, Cole leaves, and she follows him, and we see Shane's dead body alone in the closet, and he comes back to life, pulls the stick out of his torso. It's healed, he's fine, and he says, "Bonnie," realizing that she saved him. We then go back to Bonnie, who's with April, who's dying. She's yelling out for help. Stefan and Elena come in, and Bonnie tells them how she did a protection spell, but it was an accident. She linked Shane's life to April, yada, yada, yada. So Stefan bites his wrist to feed April his blood to heal her. And Elena asks Bonnie, like, you couldn't control it. And Bonnie says, "I didn't even know what I was doing. Usually I feel pain or I bleed, but this time I just felt more power." Yeah, girl, that should be a point of concern. And April wakes up, so she's fine. And honestly, at this point, girl, this is the third time you've almost died this season. You need to leave town. Like, please, someone just compel her to get the hell out of Dodge. She doesn't even have family here. She has no reason for staying. Stefan tells Bonnie to get April out of here, and she's like, "You guys aren't coming." And Elena says, "We can't. Rebecca's compelled us to stay, but just be careful because Tyler's out there. He's a wolf. He doesn't have control." So they leave, and Stefan locks the door, and Elena says his name, but Stefan says no. And Elena says, "Stefan, please, we have to talk about this." And Stefan says, "Talk about what? How many more ways are there for you to rip up my heart?" Girl, you gotta give him time, okay? He just find out about things. But Elena starts crying, saying she's sorry. And Stefan says, "Are you sorry that it happened or sorry that I found out?" And Elena's like, "I'm sorry about all of it. I'm really, really sorry, Stefan. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't want that." Well, girl, you did hurt him. And you would have known that it was going to hurt him, and you did it anyway. Sorry about it all. Besides that, you still did things that you knew would hurt him. We just didn't own up to it. Get on with it. Like, you're no longer that kind Elena that you used to be, because what you want, at the end of the day, you really just should have waited a bit more time until you slept with Damon after you and Stefan broke up, considering Damon is the reason that you broke up, and maybe the two of you shouldn't have lied to him about it. I can't rehash it all. Anyway, Rebecca then enters and says, why are my least favorite people always the most durable? We then go to the gym where Caroline comes in and notices Tyler laying naked, because, you know, he's out of wolf form, by his mom's memorial. It's very sad. Like, she goes and covers him with a tablecloth and he's crying and she's holding him and Tyler says, I'm sorry. And Caroline says, it wasn't your fault, Tyler. And he cries even more and says, yes, it was. This whole thing, it's all my fault. I should have saved her. And Caroline just comforts him. And it's really sad. I feel bad for Tyler. You know, he had a solid plan with Haley and the hybrids. Like, he couldn't have predicted that Haley was going to betray him. He really thought he had it in the bag. But at the same time, you could have been a bit smarter. He should have told Carol to leave town. Like, we know Klaus's track record with killing people's family when he wants revenge, so... But he still shouldn't blame himself. Back in the science lab, Stefan tells Rebecca, leave Elena out of this. This is between you and me. And Rebecca says, you're still protecting her? Must I rip out your bleeding heart from your chest and show you the scar tissue that is Elena Gilbert? I love that imagery. She looks to Elena and says to Stefan. Rebecca then looks to Elena and says, there's a solution to all your problems, you know. I could compel him, erase every memory he has of you, every day you've spent together, every kiss, every lie, every ounce of pain. I could take away every bit of love he has for you, give you both a clean slate. Just say the word and I'll make you and all that misery that you've caused him disappear. Obviously, Elena doesn't say anything, but Stefan says, do it. Elena's shocked and hurt by this. Rebecca's surprised, and Stefan says, erase it. Erase every memory. Elena says, Stefan, no. So she wants him to still feel all the feelings towards her. She's like, I don't want you anymore. But you still need to want me. I still want you to feel the pain of not having me. Like, girl, a little bit selfish. Especially given something Elena does in season 6. If you know, you know. But anyway, I digress. Stefan says to do it again. Rebecca giggles and then gets serious and says, no. That would be far too easy. I refuse to make you forget her the way Klaus made you forget me. Rebecca, girl. I know you're not comparing your little fling in the 20s with no humanity, Stefan, to Stefan and Elena's relationship. Get real. Get real. She's so pathetic sometimes. I can't. Oh, gosh. Rebecca then turns to Elena and says, but at least you know how he really feels. She turns to Stefan and says, consider your eternity of pain my revenge. I've used you for all you're worth. You're both free to go. And she leaves. And I just love the mess that Rebecca's caused today. It's great work. A good day's work. You know, she went home and was proud of herself. She put up her feet, had a drink, and was like, damn, I ate that. Great first day back at life. Stefan looks at Elena, exhausted, depressed, miserable, heartbroken. It's just over. He goes to leave. And Elena says, Stefan, wait. But he just keeps walking. She chases him out into the hallway, asks him to stop, but he doesn't. And she just lets him go and walk away, as she should. Girl, let it scab. Let the wound scab. We then go back to Whitmer College where Bonnie goes into Shane's office and he's, you know, just really reeling from the day, cleaning up the blood. Obviously not reading the room. First thing he says is, turns out I miscalculated. Cole's gonna be a problem. Bonnie says, I almost killed someone and that's what you miscalculated? April could have died today. And Shane's like, who? Like, he doesn't care about her. He's like, the girl whose dad I made kill himself? He just says, Bonnie, that's only because you don't know the extent of your abilities. Or is it because you've been keeping her in the dark and weaponizing her? If you've watched the movie Weapons, he's literally turning Bonnie into a weapon. You walk like a bitch when I was 10 someone said that, and it's just self-defense and like you're building a weapon. She believed my projection, now I totally get it. And inside the icon is still a young girl from Mystic Falls. That was so lame. Bonnie says to Shane, my father just became mayor. I can't be out doing black magic. It's just really funny, because if your father wasn't mayor, then you would be okay with doing black magic. Like, what does A have to do with B? Shane says that's not what expression is, Bonnie. The way of doing magic that isn't monitored by nature or the spirits. It isn't good or bad, but it also has no limits. So how you use it is up to you, and that's what I'm here for. To help you. More like to control you. Bonnie, take the wool out of your eyes and your ears. Open up. Okay, please. And what's crazy is Bonnie's not even questioning where the source of power is coming from. She started the season having no magic because the ancestors took it away from her because she tried to stop Elena from being a vampire and they punished her grams. And now she has all this power. She doesn't even know it's coming from human sacrifice. And now hybrid sacrifice, I guess. But 24 people have died to give you that power, Bonnie. Whew. Anyway, Shane goes over to Bonnie, continues to groom her and says, Bonnie, listen to me. You are the key to everything, and I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you. Yeah, sure, you've only just taught her a magic that she doesn't know how to control, made her a weapon that you control, and turned her into a ticking time bomb that only you can defuse. Guys, this is why we need to pay attention to what Bonnie's up to and take care of her. While everyone's fawning over Elena and in a transition, this entire season, Bonnie has been groomed by Atticus Shane. It really is sad what Bonnie's become because of her friends who weren't there for her, and we'll see what it does to her in the end. Anyway, we then go back to the Gilbert Lake where Damon is burying the pizza girl vampire corpse, and he gets a call from Elena. She's sitting on her porch And he says, I hope your day's going a lot better than mine. Gotta say, I'm liking the odds. And Elena tells him Stefan knows about them. And he asks how Stefan took it. And Elena's like, how do you think? And Damon says, I'm thinking for the first time all week, I'm happy to be at Camp Nowhere. Damn, okay, where's the concern for your brother, Damon? You're just like, I don't care, I'm happy I'm not involved. Elena asks how Jeremy's doing. Damon says, that just depends how much you trust me. And Elena says, you know I trust you. Well, yeah, because of the Sire bond. She says, thanks for looking out for him. Damon tries to get off the phone, but Elena says, not yet. Something happened today. I realized something about you, about us. And you can say it's because of the Sire bond, and you know what? Maybe it is. Girl, I don't think you should say that. The whole reason Damon's like struggling is because he thinks you already love him because of the Sire bond. But anyway, Elena says, but I'm telling you, it's the most real thing I've ever felt in my entire life. I love you, Damon. I love you. And somehow this is enough for him on the phone, even though it wasn't when she was saying it before. I don't know. Maybe her being away from him just was too difficult for all of like a week. It probably was. At the same time, I think this is the first time Elena's told Damon that she loves him. I think before it was just like, this is real. Like what we feel for each other is real. Like I think she didn't use the L word. So this really hits for Damon. He's looking super emotional. And he says, look, I'm going to get this cure for you. And I'm going to have to do things that you're not going to like. But listen carefully. Get in your car right now and come to me. And Elena says she'll be there soon. And she smiles. Very cutesy. Very cutesy. Delena only had one episode apart, so we'll see how that's going to go. It looks like Damon's given up on staying away from Elena until the Sire bond's broken. But you know what? It's not like any of us thought that that was going to last. It's way too difficult for them. And I think it can work because her feelings for Damon are real. It's just, she just does anything he says, so he just needs to like not tell her what to do. We then go to the Salvator house where Rebecca walks in and Stefan says, please, just let yourself in. Well, you guys never lock your door. And Rebecca's like, you called me. Should I be checking for hidden daggers? Well, yeah, girl, probably wouldn't hurt. Stefan asks if she still wants to find the cure, and she says, more than anything, I want to ram it down Niklaus's throat and look into his eyes as he realizes he's mortal again. So she's still pissed at Klaus when it's like, girl, I don't know why you're still surprised or pissed. He's been daggering you. He's done it multiple times. At least this time, you were only daggered for a couple weeks as opposed to like 90 years the last time. Like, I'm not saying daggering's good, but you just think she'd be used to it by now. But every time she comes back more pissed than the last. And she always says she's going to get revenge on Klaus, and then she never does, and the cycle just continues and continues. It gets a bit exhausting. But Rebecca says, but Shane's dead, and you're useless. So I'm right back where I started. But Stefan says, Shane's not dead. Bonnie did a little spell. He's perfectly fine. This is good information to share to get her to trust him. And Rebecca clocks this and says, you didn't have to tell me that. So why am I really here? And Stefan says, you were right. If I'm going to be here for an eternity, I will go insane if I don't know how Elena truly feels about my brother. So now for Stefan, getting Elena to become human is officially about finding out if her feelings for Damon are real, not if she'll get back together with him. Like, that's kind of buried, or maybe he still has hope. Still having hope that she's going to get back together with him after all this is delusional. But that's okay, Stefan. You can be delusional. Like, Elena becoming human is just not going to change her feelings, but I just think Stefan's not ready for that conversation. He still wants to be a little bit in denial. But anyway, Rebecca says, if you really want that cure, you should know that Shane has an agenda, and it's a dark one. He organized dozens of people to die in a sacrifice. He admitted to the council explosion where 12 people died, and I'm guessing it's not a coincidence that 12 hybrids died at the hands of my brother. Stefan says, 12, huh? And now he's making the connection that I begged you guys to make ages ago when you went to New Orleans to talk to that witch about expression. And he says, channeling the energy from a mass death is used in witchcraft to perform dark spells. It's called expression. Yes, Stefan, thank you for putting the puzzle pieces together. I was really pissed off in episode 8 when they weren't. And he says to Rebecca, Shane admitted this all to you, and Rebecca says, proudly. Which is so funny because Shane's been keeping this a secret so much to everyone, including Bonnie, the person that he's teaching expression to. But when he sees the originals, he fangirls so much he just lets it all spill. Stefan says, well then I guess we're gonna have to figure out how to manage him while we find the cure for ourselves. And Rebecca says, there is no we, Stefan. But Stefan says, listen, I hate my brother and you hate yours. Well, Stefan, I don't think you hate Damon as much as Rebecca hates Klaus, but I digress. Stefan says, Damon's got Jeremy, Klaus has the sword, Shane has Bonnie, so we're the ones left with nothing. You said it yourself, right? Whoever finds the cure first gets to decide what to do with it. So what do you say? You want to be partners? Ooh. And you know what? I'm into this. I like Rebecca and Stefan whenever they're partners in crime. I think they can have a lot of fun together. I secretly do love this pairing. They're both so emotional and chaotic, it almost becomes catatonic. And this is a win for Rebecca, because not only did she wake up from her coffin slumber, but she got amazing revenge, she got to piss off Elena, Shane's not dead, and now she got a solid alliance. Because I mean, what was she going to do with her current pairing of April Young? That's useless. She probably didn't even check in with April after all that. As all she knows, April was still at the school looking for supplies for her flowchart. April would be dead, and she'd find out and be like, oh, she passed away? Well, anyways, speaking of the devil, we catch up with April Young, who's at the grill talking to people. We don't see who they are yet. And she tells them, my father had no reason to kill 11 people. He had no reason to kill himself. He loved me and he loved Mystic Falls. He was brainwashed into sparking that fire. Professor Shane organizes death and the 11 others who died with him. The camera then flips around and we see that Sheriff Liz Forbes and interim Mayor Rudy Hopkins are the ones listening to April talk. And April says back to them, it's time this entire town started telling the truth. And I'm not sure if April put two and two together with the supernatural ongoings. I don't think she's that smart. I'm thinking maybe Rebecca told her because, I don't know, does Rebecca feel bad for her? We had that moment in episode 3 when Rebecca was like, I can help you find out what happened to your dad. Like maybe she really meant that. But is Rebecca capable of having a real friendship? I don't really know. Either way, April's here, getting the council involved, and we'll see what this does in the next episode, because it's about time that everybody starts zoning in on Shane, what he's doing to Bonnie, and what he's doing around this town. He is the master manipulator, orchestrating all of this, pulling the strings behind the scenes, and no one's even known about it this whole time, so now his mask is finally being pulled down. We then go to some random bar called Xanadu, and inside there are dead bodies everywhere, and in walks Jeremy, Matt, and Damon, and they see Klaus sitting at the bar with his dead people everywhere drinking, and he's like, I was beginning to worry you boys wouldn't find the place. Matt asks Klaus if he killed all these people. Well, duh, Matt. I don't know why we brought the idiot. But Klaus says, actually, they're in transition. He then looks to Jeremy and says, killing them is your job. Jeremy looks to Damon and says, you said you were going to convince Klaus to do this another way. And Damon says, yeah, I thought about it. And then I realized his idea was better. And the humans start waking up from their transition. And that is the end of the episode. So a couple things to say about this. I'm not sure why Damon would invite Elena to come to the lake house while all this is going on, because he would know that she wasn't going to like this. But maybe he thought he convinced her to be okay with it because of the Sire bond. I don't really know. But also, sorry not sorry, Jeremy, what did you think was going to happen with Klaus involved? Did you really think he was going to let you run around and find vampires all over Virginia or America or whatever? Like, of course he was just going to turn people. It's the quickest, most efficient way. Now, what you could have done is worked with him and was like, look, I know this is what we have to do. Let's go free a bunch of criminals who are like truly the worst scum of the earth, who do not, we'll turn them and we'll kill them. They can become vampires. I've always said that. Find the worst of the worst and do it that way so you don't have to kill innocent people. But no, they just want to be on that moral high ground. But anyway, I digress. That is the end of this episode. We'll deal with all these freshly turned vampires in the next episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. I really love this episode. After School Special is so fun. I love Rebecca's revenge. It's everything to me. I love this episode. Let me know what you thought of it down below. But next up, let's get into season 4, episode 11 of the Vampire Diaries, titled Catch Me If You Can. Ooh. Before we get into the episode, I was looking at the mind map and I noticed that I forgot to update Jeremy's character card. So I'm now putting a hunter symbol on Jeremy's character card because, of course, he is officially a member of the 5, the supernatural vampire hunters. But anyway, we start the episodes in the woods. It's nighttime and Matt is running and we hear snarling. So clearly the vampires are chasing him. He hides behind a tree and it's silent, but then a vampire finds him and starts feeding on him. But then luckily Jeremy appears and shoots the vampire in the back with a crossbow, saving Matt. We then flash back to the bar Xanadu where we ended the last episode, and Jeremy tries to refuse killing all of these vampires, but Klaus says, what makes you think you have a choice? And at this point, Jeremy, what makes you think you have a say in this? Like, this has clearly gotten out of your hands. Damon reminds Jeremy killing his vampire means completing his mark, which means finding the cure. Obviously, we know that. They just have to remind us every episode. But Jeremy's pissed at Damon because he said that he wouldn't have to kill any innocent people, and Damon's like, well, they're technically not people anymore. And it was obviously very naive for Jeremy to just think they were going to spend months and months looking for evil vampires all over the country to kill. And Klaus is over this back and forth and says, enough, have at it or else. Jeremy says to Klaus, I don't take orders from you, dick. Hunters can't be compelled. What makes you think he needs to compel you, Jeremy? I don't know where Jeremy gets the confidence, the goal, or the wherewithal. And Klaus says, you're right, I can't compel you, but if your conscience is getting in the way, then allow me to make this easy for you, because I can compel them. He points to all the transitioning vampires who we see are being fed by a compelled human, so they're completing their transition, and Klaus says, I'm going to give you a 2-minute head start, then I'm going to send every vampire in here after you. You kill them, or they kill your friend Matt. Matt's like, what? And honestly, Matt, what purpose did you think that you would be besides human bait? Did you really think they needed you, of all people, to help Jeremy train? Like, come on, like the naivete. I can't believe this. And also, if we just worked with Klaus and came up with a system, then we wouldn't be in this situation. Like, Damon could manage this and is like, no, we don't need to send him on a wild goose chase hunting. Like, let's just work together. It's done now. Compel all of these vampires not to move, and Jeremy can go stake them all one by one. Boom, easy. We kill them all in like 15 minutes. He completes the mark, and we get on with our life. RIP to all of the local drunks at Xanadu Bar. There you go. But no, we had to make it the hard way. And Matt, I don't even know what to say about you. You're just an idiot. When that pizza vampire attacked you, that should have been your cue to go home. But I digress. Damon says to Klaus, no, you turn them, he kills them. That was the deal. And Damon, once again, you're being stupid. Since when was Klaus someone that keeps deals? He's gonna do things his way. And Klaus says, well, I'm taking artistic license. And Damon says, you know he can't take them all on board at once. I mean, he very well could. Alark's done that before. Give him a grenade bomb. Help him out, Damon. Snap all of their necks. Lay them down in a line, and then Jeremy can stake them as he goes along. Like, there are ways around this. I feel like you guys are just being drama queens. Klaus says to Damon, with you as his coach, he'll be fine. It's Matt that I'm worried about. Realizing they have no choice, Damon tells Matt and Jeremy to go to the car and get their weapons, so they do, and Klaus says to them as they leave, if I hear an engine start, I'll kill Matt myself. We then go back to the woods we were in the beginning of the episode after Jeremy has saved Matt. He's checking if he's okay. Matt says he needs a second, and Jeremy's like, we don't have a second, they can smell blood. So they hear a noise, Jeremy turns around raising his crossbow, but it's Damon who grabs the crossbow and says, don't hesitate, you're lucky it was me, otherwise you'd be dead. Which, yes, Jeremy, you need to quicken those hunter skills. Then again, you guys did dull those instincts by giving Jeremy a conscience. Jeremy's pissed off and says, you set me up, and Damon says, I was trying to get this thing over with. You're the one who pissed off Klaus. Now we have to fight our way out of it. These vampires are newbies. They're still trying to figure out how to track, which means you have 2 seconds to get ready to fight. Jeremy says to Matt, the lake house is this way. If we can get there, they won't be able to get inside. And Damon's like, wait, you're gonna run? And Jeremy's like, they're gonna kill Matt. And Damon's like, so? No, I'm kidding. He didn't say that, but I did. Also, doesn't Matt have his Gilbert ring? Like, just take one for the team. I think he's got a couple more kills in him before he goes crazy like a lark. But anyway, Damon just gives in and says, alrighty, I'll slow them down. So Jeremy and Matt run off. A vampire shows up. Damon rips out his heart. So now you're killing them, Damon? That's a waste of a vampire. Once again, I say snap their neck. We go back to Jeremy. He's running too fast, so he's lost track of Matt. They're yelling at each other in the woods. But then a vampire speeds up behind Matt, jumps on top of him, and is trying to feed him. Matt's trying to fight him off. But then Elena appears because remember, she spoke to Damon on the phone and was going to show up to, like, you know, get freaky with him, supposedly. And she pulls the vampire off of Matt, snapping his neck, and is like, what the hell is going on? But before he can tell her, Jeremy appears and says, come on, guys, we've got to get to the house. So they run into the lake house. They go inside, which is good because, you know, the vampires can't get in. It's a home base. But let's actually do something about it because all these vampires start coming towards the front door. It's very ominous, very cool looking. But does Jeremy shoot any of them? No. Let's be a little bit more proactive here, guys. Come on. It's not like you had a vampire hunter as a guardian for years or anything. I just think the way that all of this is handled is so sloppy. I know Connor Jordan is rolling in his grave. So some time passes and Jeremy's looking out the window saying, the sun's up, so they're long gone by now. So congratulations, Jeremy. You killed no vampires. Elena snapped one's neck and Damon killed one. So all up, we're at 0 progress in growing this mark. Elena's taking care of Matt's neck wound. Damon comes in and Elena's like, what the hell were you thinking? All I asked you to do was teach him how to fight. And Damon's like, well, he's not the best student in the world. And Jeremy's like, wait, now this is my fault? And Damon's like, just stop talking. Poor Jeremy, forever getting bullied by the guy who killed him that one time that's now sleeping with his sister cousin. David says to Elena, look, I know you're angry, but my way was the easiest, fastest, and safest way to complete his mark to get to the cure. Well, sure, Damon, but the way that you handled it ended up being a mess because you blindsided Jeremy. There was a better way to do it. Elena says her classic spiel, I don't care about the cure if it means putting the people that I love in danger. She said the same thing about the sacrifice. We get it, girl, you're a martyr that wants to die. And that ship sailed because everyone's invested. And Jeremy was already in danger the second he was a potential for a hunter and once he became one to save your ass from the hunter's curse. Damon says there would have been no danger if he hadn't gone all bleeding hearts. Elena says he killed someone. Those were innocent people. Well, they weren't people, they were vampires. And Damon says, but the mark grew, didn't it? I'm assuming he's referring to when Jeremy killed that one pizza delivery girl. And Elena can't deny the plan worked, so she just moved on and says, we need a plan, okay? There's a group of compelled vampires out there, and as soon as the sun goes down, they're gonna come after Matt. Well, just go home to Mystic Falls. You really think the vampires are gonna track him all the way there? She's like, we're gonna have to find a way to protect him. And Damon's like, there'll be no problem when Big Jur and I here just go on a hunting expedition. Elena, I know it's tragic, I get it, but we also agree that he has to kill them. Now we have added incentive, so you can take the least most valuable player home, and Jeremy and I will finish this. Elena's like, are you seriously suggesting that I leave him here with you? And Damon's like, trust me, I'll keep him safe, okay? And then all of a sudden she calms down and agrees with him because he's invoking that sire bond. Oh, and it's really that easy. He should have just said that from the beginning instead of having this conversation. But I guess he is trying to let Elena have agency over her actions, but ultimately he's still doing what he wants. So you're enacting the sire bond regardless, Damon. But this time around, I condone it. Even though, morally it's wrong, but it's a supernatural show. Whatever. We then go over to the Salvatore house where Stefan is entering his bedroom after having a shower, and he finds Rebecca laying on his bed reading his diary. One thing about this show, people are gonna be reading Stefan's diary. I love it when they do it. And he says in a really cheeky tone, I know you were like daggered for a while, but you know, knocking is still a thing. But he's not really fake. At this point, he's used to people reading his innermost personal thoughts. Rebecca says, I'm just checking for doubts. You can never be too cautious when it comes to love. One minute you're begging me to compel Elena from your mind, and the next I'm up Coffin Creek with a dagger in my back. It's time to get over it, Rebecca, please. I know it's never fun, but you've done far worse, like trying to kill his girlfriend, and then, well, she actually did kill her. She just happened to become a vampire, so I think we're just about even. Stefan puts on a shirt and pours himself a morning bourbon because he's really committed to his alcoholism, and says, right, well, you can read it all you want. I'm done with her. Yeah, sure you are. And Rebecca's like, yeah, until we find the cure, right? He doesn't respond because she clocked him. Not that hard to do these days. She says, hey, I'm talking to you, and he's like, yeah, I know you are. I'm just ignoring you. They're having a bit of banter. It's a wee bit fun. And Rebecca says, look, we're at a bit of a disadvantage in this race for the cure. Team Klaus has Jeremy the Hunter. Team Shane has Bonnie the Witch. And Stefan interrupts her saying, if you're here to remind me of our lost place status, I'm well aware. And Rebecca says, no, actually, I have a plan. The cure is buried with Silas, that evil guy that my brother Cole is so afraid of. Shane was so eager to prove his existence that he gave away that he has one of the keys to resurrecting him, his headstone. Oh my god, how many pieces of the puzzle are there to this cure? Like, I know the writers with season 4 were like trying to map it all out, keep it all on track, because it is so convoluted, but honestly, I love it. I love season 4 because it feels like such an adventure. I cannot wait till we get to the next chapter where we actually get to the cure island. If you know, you know. I love those 3 episodes. But anyway, I digress. Stefan says, so you want to steal the headstone? And Rebecca says yes. And then Team Shane will have to join Team Rebecca. And then Team Klaus will be left out in the cold where he belongs. And Stefan's like, oh, I was actually thinking we could call it like Team Stefan. No, I'm kidding. He doesn't do that. So that's their mission for the day. Wonder if anything else is going to happen between Stefan and Rebecca. Steph Becca. Refin. Stefeka? I don't know. We then go over to Whitmore College where Bonnie is having her routine grooming session. It's a bit dark, but it's true. She's in Shane's office, sitting across from him with her eyes closed and there's a candle on the desk. They're practicing magic and she seems frustrated. And Shane says, you know, just because your eyes closed doesn't mean that you're actually meditating. Come on, use your breath to calm your nerves. So I don't think she's practicing magic. I think he's actually like hypnotizing her again. You know, like how he likes to like put her in a trance where she doesn't know what's going on for hours and hours and she doesn't see that as a red flag. Bonnie says, great, so now I can't even meditate right. What else can I fail at? And Shane says, you didn't fail. And Bonnie says, I did an expression spell that almost killed April. And Shane's like, so? No, I'm kidding. But yes, Bonnie, I think it's morally great that you are concerned about Shane teaching you the spell. Let's hold on to that. But no, Shane manipulates her further and says, exactly, almost. Failing would have been actually killing her. You got like a D-. So funny joking about getting teenagers to kill other teenagers with black magic. He's trying to save face because obviously that was his exact intention with teaching Bonnie that spell, but he's being a little too flippant because Bonnie's like, it's not funny. I have all this power now and I'm worried I won't be able to control it. Fire in the candle surges, indicating that, and Shane holds her hands and says, Bonnie, look at me. I'm here with you. You don't have anything to worry about. You are strong. You are focused. You are in complete control. It looks like he's hypnotizing her again because she gets all up in a trance, and it works because Bonnie says, you're here with me. I'm in complete control. And the fire in the candle comes down. Can somebody save our girl, please? Well, my prayers are finally answered because Sheriff Liz Forbes comes busting through the door with her deputies who cuff Atticus Shane, and he says, this isn't even your jurisdiction. And Sheriff Forbes says, well, I guess we better get you back to Mystic Falls ASAP then. Gaggy. Finally someone abusing their power for good instead of evil. Bonnie asks Liz why she's doing this, and Liz says, I think you better ask your father that. I'm so happy that people are finally starting to catch on to Shane's ish at this point. But anyway, we go back to the woods where Damon and Jeremy are getting weapons out of the trunk of the car, and Jamie says, so you really think they went back to the bar? And Damon's like, where else are they gonna go? It's all cabins and vacation homes. They can't get in anywhere. He passes Jeremy a crossbow who says, let's just get this over with. And Damon says, just go one at a time. Only shoot for the heart, don't hesitate, and don't miss. And Jeremy says, save the teaching moment. Elena's not here. You don't have to pretend like you give a damn about me. Damon's like, I'm trying to keep you alive, dumbass. Now come on. It's the same song and dance. We then skip ahead in time where they're walking through Bar Xanadu and it's empty. There's no one there, but there's a huge trail of blood leading through the bar into the cold rooms where they walk in and see all of the vampire bodies dead in a pile. Ugh, what a waste. And Damon agrees with me. You guys completely bundled this whole thing. Then all of a sudden we hear Cole's voice and he walks in saying, I confess, I did it. It's really funny to think that he's just been waiting in this cold fridge like for hours waiting for his entrance line. Jeremy points a crossbow at him and Cole says, Jeremy, mate, good to see ya. Why did I just do an Australian accent when he's like, well, because he is trying to do a British accent, but the actor's Australian, so his accent's a bit of a mess. But anyway, we obviously remember that Jeremy and Cole were fake friends back when Jeremy lived in Denver. And Cole says, sorry about the mess. It was a little crowded when I arrived and I prefer a more intimate gatherings. Now the three of us need to have a little chat. You know Cole, he's having fun, always likes to have a bit of mischief. And Cole says, my brother bragged about his plan to complete Jeremy's hunter's mark. Of course she did, Klaus, so much for keeping that a secret. Cole says it was easy enough to track down this lot. They were all hiding in the shadows. Now killing a young vampire is easy, or old ones for that matter. An obvious threat to Damon, who says, what is it to you either way? And Cole says, because you fool, in your zeal to find the cure, you risk waking up someone very dangerous. And Damon says, oh, you must be talking about Silas. And Cole's like, what do you know of him? He's so afraid. And Damon says, nothing, don't want to, not our problem. Well, it kind of is. And Cole says, isn't it? A few hundred years back, I came across a group that worshipped Silas. His followers told me that he would rise again, and when he did, he would trigger the end of all time. It sounds a little biblical and cult-like, and Damon and our crew should be asking some follow-up questions, but Cole's making it sound stupid, so no one's actually taking him seriously. And they never have. So Cole says, you know, being immortal, you can see why I'm opposed to time's ending, so I murdered all of his followers, and now here you all are, willing to risk raising him in your search for the cure. I can't exactly sit back and let that happen now, can I? Damon's like, well, we're not gonna back off the cure because you were told too many scary bedtime stories, you idiot. Damon does not fuck with Cole, one thing about him. Remember when he snapped his neck at the Michelson Ball, and then stabbed Cole with a baseball bat, and then Cole beat him up with a baseball bat? Like, these two do not fuck with each other. I mean, no one really fucks with Cole, though, let's be real. He's kind of like an annoying gnat. Cole shoves past Damon and says to Jeremy, we were mates in Colorado. You're a smart lad. Why don't you call of this umbilic treasure hunt? Which is stupid because you're calling on a friendship that was never even real. And Jeremy holds firm with his crossbow and says, I'm not calling anything off, mate. Also, it's not up to you, Jeremy. Clearly. Cole says, well, I could kill you then. Ugh, but then I'd have to deal with the pesty hunter's curse, and I don't particularly feel like being haunted for the next century. Better idea, I'll just rip your arms off. Now we're talking. And this is an interesting way to go about it, because no one's going to want to kill a hunter, but if you rip off the arms, then boom, there goes your map to the cure. So Jeremy better be protecting those arms. He should get them insured. They're pretty nice arms. Cole vamp speeds to Jeremy to attack him, but then Damon vamp speeds against Cole, pushing him against the wall, and yells at Jeremy to run, and so he does. And Damon gets a few punches in on Cole, but then Cole manages to get a hold of Damon, strangling him from behind. Before we see how that ends though, we go back to Whitmore College, where Stefan and Rebecca break into Professor Shane's office, and they're looking through all of his things, and after a while they don't find anything, and Stefan's getting really frustrated, but he needs to give it time. There's like a lot of stolen artifacts there. Remember, Shane likes to pillage Eastern countries all over the world of their relics. And Rebecca says, don't rip her out on me, we'll find it. Ugh, you're all bottled up, you need a release. Maybe we can find you like a voodoo doll or something. She then finds Shane's witch weed that he's been feeding to Bonnie, and she says this should do the trick, exactly what you need, the professor's stash of herbs. Stefan says he's not interested, and Rebecca's like, what happened to you? You were so much fun in the 20s. This is always her MO whenever Stefan's being a Debbie Downer. Like, that is just Stefan's personality. I love him, he's my boo thing, but he's not fun. He's only fun when he has his humanity off, if you're okay with, like, you know, torturing people and you're on his side, and that's what you're always referring back to. That's not who he really is, okay, Rebecca? So stop bringing it up. It's annoying. Like, newsflash, girl, he's not the same person he was in the 20s. And Stefan says the same thing, saying, I was a psychotic killer with no emotions in the 1920s. And Rebecca says, you may have been a killer, but you were far from emotionless, Stefan. You had a blast. I know you remember. The jazz, the booze, a little table at Gloria's. Rebecca, enough. You were just all over Matt a couple weeks ago buying him a new car trying to get in his pants, and now you're going back to Stefan. I can't with her. She's so messy. But honestly, as pathetic as it is, I respect the hustle. Even though her only way of flirting with Stefan is just reminiscing on what they did a century ago, like, girl, get with the time, get with the program. Stefan doesn't budge, and she says, come on, don't make me compel it out of you. So Stefan plays along and says, all right, I guess we had a little bit of fun. Rebecca smiles and says, thank you. So now that we've established that fun is in fact possible, maybe you'd like to stop by having some. She passes Stefan the witchweed herbs and says, don't worry about the professor. He won't be back anytime soon. I've made sure of that. So yeah, we do get confirmation that Rebecca told April about what Professor Shane did. So honestly, thank you, Rebecca, for blowing up his spot. Nobody takes how sinister Shane is seriously. So speaking of Shane, we catch up with him where he's in an interrogation room with Sheriff Liz Forbes, and he says, you're accusing me of orchestrating a mass murder? Do you know how ridiculous that sounds? Well, that isn't denial, it's just deflection. And Liz says, it's Mystic Falls. It's actually one of the least ridiculous things I've heard, which is so funny. I love that line, because she's dealt with a lot of crazy shit. We then see Bonnie with her dad watching this interrogation, so it's obviously a live feed, and Bonnie says he already explained this, Dad. Pastor Young came for him for help. He was crazy. And Rudy says no, he was grief-stricken, and Shane took advantage of that. Bonnie says, and he somehow talked him into killing a house full of people. It doesn't make any sense. Bonnie, a lot of things aren't making sense with Shane that you aren't questioning, so I don't exactly think that we should be taking your word for for it. And Rudy says, I've met people like this, Bonnie. They're fast talking, they're charismatic, they're manipulators, they prey on the weak-minded. Deb, who are you coming across in the world of traveling pharmaceutical reps? And Bonnie says, and you're worried that's what he's doing to me. That's why you brought him here, isn't it? Well, girl, I mean, if the shoe fits. But no, Bonnie, I love you, but this isn't actually just about you. Shane is being accused of like a massive crime, and your father is the mayor. And Rudy says, no, we brought him in because April Young told us what he did, and Rebecca Michelson confirmed all of it. And Bonnie's like, whatever, because she doesn't trust Rebecca, and says, I'm going in there. And Rudy says, no, you're not. But Bonnie says, if he's gonna tell anybody what he did, it's gonna be me. Unless you think I'm too weak-minded or something. So he obviously doesn't want her to think that, so he lets her go in. Even though I don't know why teenagers just being allowed inside a sheriff's interrogation room, but we can't question too much of what goes on in this town when it comes to the legalities. I mean, Rudy's number one informant in this case is a 1,000-year-old original vampire who's been daggered for a couple weeks. So we're playing fast and loose with the law here. So Bonnie enters the interrogation room. Liz says it isn't a good time now, but Rudy's like, just let them talk. So those two leave, and Bonnie sits down in front of Shane, who says, I think your dad's a little confused on the format of parent-teacher conferences. Enough with your shitty-ass jokes, Shane. Let's get real. Bonnie, who's still under his spell, says, I'm so sorry. Rebecca told him that you confessed. I know she's lying. Shane fully drops the act and covers his mouth from the camera and whispers to Bonnie, you know the truth is, she's not. So now you can't even try and hide it from Bonnie. I don't know why he's trying to blow up his spot so much. But you know what? I think he's confident in how much he's manipulating Bonnie, that I think he thinks he can get her over this, but also that he's made her a weapon that only he can control. So Shane's smart. He knows what he's doing. He's an evil genius. Like, even though Bonnie's going to be initially upset, he's got his hooks in her to an extent that none of them realize. She doesn't realize. Her dad doesn't realize. We then go over to the Gilbert house where Elena enters with Matt and says, I'm sorry. Listen, when I asked you to stay with Jeremy, I never would have thought that. And Matt's like, what did you expect, Elena? It's Damon. Fair point. Elena says, I never wanted anyone to get hurt. Girl, you never want anyone to get hurt, but people always get hurt. Intent is irrelevant from what actually happens. She always says this shit as if it absolves her, and it really just gets on my nerves. Matt's like, well, then you shouldn't have left Damon in charge. He calms himself down and says, oh, I'm sorry. I know you didn't have a choice. Sire bond and all. This goddamn sire bond. You can't even tell if Elena's actions are true or not. Elena's like, the sire bond doesn't exactly work like that. Well, yes, it does, Elena, because Damon tells you what he thinks is best, and you go along with it. So it works exactly like that. And you're acting like a different person when it comes to keeping Jeremy protected. That used to be your number one priority. And Matt says, all I know is the Elena that I know, the old you, would have never left Jeremy with Damon, especially what happened after last night. And if that ain't a truth bomb tea right there. But it is sad because, like, it's not fully up to Elena's control because of the sire bond. But even prior to the sire bond, she would go along with some of Damon's crazy plans, but she did have more agency. I really hate how the sire bond takes away her agency. She's not really herself at the moment. She's just like Damon's puppet, like accidentally. Like, this period of season 4, like season 4 Elena is kind of like my least favorite. No, she can be annoying in some of the other seasons, but like up until this point, season 1, 2, and 3, Elena I love, but season 4 is when I start to get annoyed with her, as you can probably tell. And I feel bad because it's like, it's not even her fault because it's like the sire bond. But then I don't know what is the sire bond and what is really her. You see how it muddies the water? I can't. Once I start talking about the sire bond, I go down the deep end. I've already made videos on my Patreon and YouTube about this, so I'm really going to try to keep it to a limit. Anyway, before Elena can unpack that, she gets a phone call from Jeremy. He says, Elena, we're in trouble. And Elena's like, whoa, slow down. Where's Damon? Elena, girl, if you don't, do you maybe want to ask your brother if he's okay before you check in on Damon? Jeremy says, Cole attacked us. I barely got away, but he's got Damon. And Elena's like, oh my God, Damon. We then cut to Klaus's mansion where Elena is meeting with him to try and negotiate with him to get Cole to stand down. And he's feeling very smug, saying, a bit ironic you coming to me for help. Weren't your friends trying to bury me in a cement tomb? Well, yes, but Elena actually didn't have any idea about what was going on with that plan, so I digress. And she says, this is your fault. You started this when you forced Jeremy to try and kill those vampires. And Klaus says, and my little brat of a brother has gone and made things worse. Well, he never really did like Damon. I suppose I should do something, shouldn't I? And Elena says, call him off, Klaus. And Klaus gets pissed and says, you are in no position to make demands, love. Whilst I'd like to cure you to make more hybrids, I do have other reasons for finding the cure, not least of which is destroying it so you lot can't use it against me. Which is, of course, smart because it is a weapon that can be used against an original to make them mortal so they can be killed. So Klaus needs to get his hand on that quick and get rid of it so no one can use it against him. I mean, we know Rebecca says she already wants to use it against him. And that's what's really interesting about the cure is there's those who want the cure because they want to be human and those who fear the cure because they don't want to be human. So that's interesting to take it from both point of views. Although it does pose an interesting question because we know with my green strings here, this indicates vampire bloodlines. And we learned in season 3 that when an original dies, every vampire turned from their sire line dies along with them. And all of our main characters who are vampires come from Klaus's sire line. And that's why Bonnie put him in Tyler's body in the beginning of the season because Klaus couldn't die because then everyone would. But we don't know if an original is cured, if that severs the sire line or not, you know? So these are a lot of questions that our gang hasn't really delved into because they're too busy worrying about Elena and not wanting to be a vampire, like blah, blah, blah. Like the cure has bigger implications here. Anyway, Elena says, whatever our difference is, we want the same thing. Please, Klaus, I'm begging you. And it works because Klaus does need Jeremy. I guess he just wanted Elena to get to the point of begging. So Klaus calls Cole and says, little brother, just 2 days home and I'm told you've already gone and made a mess. And Cole says, come on, Nick, I was only having some fun. I love these Michaelsons. And Klaus says, those vampires were for my hunter. And Cole says, well, go and make some more. There's no shortage of people. And Klaus asks, where's Damon? And Cole says, I gave him a good and proper beating for old time's sake. Klaus says, yes, well, you've had your fun. Now let him go and come home. Avoid any more trouble or you'll find yourself back in a box. He loves to threaten that. And Cole says, no need to be nasty about it. And Klaus says, on the contrary, I find nastiness to be essential whenever my siblings try and sabotage me. Listen closely, Cole. Stay away from the Gilbert boy. Understand? And Cole says, fine. I won't touch him. You have my word. And he hangs up. Now, Klaus, you know that you and your brothers, specifically Elijah, but now Cole apparently too, you know you all love to do the wordplay. Like, he says he won't touch him. That doesn't mean he's not going to still get up to something that's going to injure or potentially kill Jeremy. Let's think. So when Cole hangs up the phone, we stay with him in the walk-in fridge, and he walks over to Damon, who we see is stabbing himself with a wooden plank because Cole has compelled him to, because no one's on Vervain because the council blew it up. And Cole says, very good, darling. Now stab yourself a little bit further. And so Damon does. One thing about Cole that I do love is I love how he's always like, darling, sweetie. Like, I love how he talks like that. They should have just gone and made him gay. That would have been fun, but I digress. Damon says, if you're going to kill me, then kill me like a man. And Cole says, I don't want to kill you. I just wanted to make sure you could be compelled. Well, to that point, Damon could have called his bluff. Damon just says, I'm going to rip out your spleen. Not that that would make a difference, because he's a vampire and it wouldn't affect him. But Cole just says, you ought to be thanking me. You don't really want to find the cure, do you? You fancy Elena. I mean, admit it. Now that she's a vampire, even more. Cole also loves to say, admit it. Oh, damn, even Cole, who hasn't been around, is up to date with the Delana tea. Word gets around. And Cole says, the last vestige of her humanity is her annoying little brother Jeremy. And deep, deep down, I bet you want him dead. Don't you? Damon says, nope, and it's not very convincing. I mean, lest we forget he has killed Jeremy before. And Cole says, you're lying. I bet you'd love to rip off his head, and I'm gonna give you your wish. He compels Damon and says, you're not gonna remember what I say, but you're going to find Jeremy Gilbert, and when you do, you're going to kill him. Well, there it is. So Cole got around his wordplay, and now Damon is going to want to kill Jeremy, except he's not gonna know he wants to do it until he sees him, and he's not gonna tell anyone, and etc, etc. So it's about to get messy. This will be the second time Damon's gonna try to kill Jeremy. Maybe the third time will be a charm. And what's interesting is if he actually did do it, if he just invoked the sire bond, would Elena even care? So many questions. But either way, Cole, I don't like you that much, but one thing I will say is this is a slay. You ate that. You ate that one thing. We then go over to the Gilbert house where Elena is in the kitchen with Jeremy, who's laying out all of his weapons on the dining table, and she tells him, like, this is over. You can put all of this away. Girl. Don't be so naive, please. You really think Klaus is gonna give Jeremy the night off or Cole's not gonna come back? Did that Cybon turn your brain off? And Jeremy keeps unloading weapons and says, Klaus wants me to finish the mark. He's not gonna stop. And Elena's like, okay, well, Damon will be back soon. And then we can figure something else out. I beg you to not think that Damon is the solution to everything. Like, look where this has all landed up. And Jeremy's like, seriously? You still trust Damon? Well, unfortunately, yeah, she is sired. And Elena says, he saved your life, Jeremy. Yeah, girl, after putting it in danger by agreeing to Klaus's plan. She's pissing me off so much. I can't. And Jeremy's like, he saved the map to the cure. He couldn't care less about me. And Elena's like, I care about you. Well, I would hope so. You're his sister cousin, but that also doesn't change the fact that he thinks that Damon doesn't. She goes to touch his shoulder to comfort him, and Jeremy snaps her hand off of him and says, don't. Whatever's inside of me that makes me want to hunt right now, it's in overdrive. And Elena then looks down to see that Jeremy's holding a steak. He snaps out of it, puts it down, and says, I'm sorry. Really want to get that cure for you, but I just don't know how I'm going to do this. Kill vampires, Jeremy. Like, it's not that hard. Once again, I suggest to go find some unredeemable criminals, or better yet, people from like conservative administration, turn them, kill them. Back in Shane's office, Rebecca's smoking the witch herbs, and Stefan's looking around saying, there's so much random crap in here. Way to disrespect all the cultures that Shane has stolen from, Stefan. And Rebecca says, crap? Maybe, random, no. Looks like Shane has a bit of an afterlife fetish. Bit of an understatement. Rebecca says, Hopi prayer feathers, the Han Dynasty solves, and that is a Polynesian sacrificial knife. brutal way to die, but at least you appease the gods. Stefan's holding said knife and says, since when did you become such an artifact expert? Well, she's been alive 1,000 years, Stefan. Give a few dagger rings here or there. She's bound to have some knowledge. And Rebecca says, I enjoy other cultures, Stefan. I know that might be hard for you to understand, considering you dated a child who only thinks about herself. Rebecca gagged Elena with that. Rebecca on top these couple episodes. I'm loving her at the moment. Ooh. But Stefan isn't loving this because without blinking, he throws the knife at Rebecca's face. Obviously, she catches it. She's got those instincts. This is obviously a major overreaction, but Rebecca just says, oh, still a sensitive subject, I see. Do you know why I wouldn't compel Elena from your memory? Stefan's like, because you wanted me to suffer. And she says, I did, but it's the only way you'll learn. It took me 1,000 years and hundreds of betrayals to realize that love, caring, it ruins you. Really, Rebecca? That's why you bought Matt that truck a couple weeks ago? Because you don't believe in love? You might want to take your own advice, girl, because recent actions disprove this. And Stefan said, that's awfully bleak. And she says, quite the opposite. It's liberating, actually. You know why we had so much fun in the 20s, Stefan? Oh, we're back to this. Because we didn't care. We just did what felt good. Drinking, feeding, sex. She's touching his chest, dragging the knife along his neck, speaking seductively. And Stefan says, the sex wasn't good because we didn't care. It was good because you're crazy. And crazy sex is always good. I mean, I believe it. I'm believing Rebecca's crazy good in bed. We know that much. Elena, she's a pillow princess, and that's okay, as is her right. Okay, that's fine. Rebecca pushes the knife a little harder into Stefan's neck. It's getting a little BDSM-y, and she says, you are hardly the model of sanity. Now, I know that's right, because at the end of the day, you guys are just two crazy bitches who are in their feels too much telling each other exactly. And you know what? If Stefan wasn't so bogged down by his morals and remorse and regret and shame and guilt, I kind of think that him and Rebecca would be perfect for each other. I don't know if it's an unpopular opinion, but I kind of love this arc that they have. It's getting a bit heated, so Stefan grabs Rebecca's hand away from him, and Rebecca whispers, stop caring. She drops the knife and they stare into each other's eyes. They're about to kiss until the door opens and they're interrupted. They vamp speed hiding in the shadows, and some random guy comes into Shane's office and he beelines straight for a bookshelf and is looking through the books until he finds a part of the wall that's hollow. He knocks on it and opens it, and inside of it is a tombstone. So he clearly knew where to look, and Rebecca vamp speeds behind him and says, good, you found it. He turns around, she grabs him by the throat and says, question is, who are you? Back at the Gilbert house porch, Damon comes up and Elena comes out to check on him, seeing that he's fine. And she's like, thank God you both got away. If Cole had taken Jeremy. And Damon's like, is he here? I just really want to talk to him really fast. He's being very intense, but Elena doesn't question it and just says, Jeremy's at the grill. He wanted to check up on Matt. Not Matt having to clock in on his shift after almost being killed by a bunch of vampires. Damon says, I should apologize to him. I was pretty tough on him today. And Elena, this is a red flag. Since when does Damon ever like to apologize to Jeremy? Since when does Damon ever like to apologize, period? Back at the sheriff's department, Bonnie's in the interrogation room talking to Shane. She turns off the camera and says, I told my dad to give us a minute. The cameras are off. You can talk. Shane's like, are you sure about that? Pointing to another camera. And Bonnie's like, yeah, I don't lie. I'm not you. Well, maybe you should lie, because secretly recording this conversation would not be a bad idea to get Shane's confession. Otherwise, it's all hearsay from Rebecca. Anyway, Shane says, look, I was always going to tell you the truth, okay? I just kept putting it off because I was worried about how you would react. And Bonnie says, bad. That's how I react to murder. And Shane says, I'm not a killer, Bonnie. Well, you're worse, actually. You just manipulate other people into doing your killing for you. But instead, Shane just says, Pastor Young was depressed. Bonnie interrupts him and says, I've heard all of this. Skip to the part where you convinced him to massacre 11 people. She's really pissed, as she should be. And Shane says, it wasn't a massacre. It was a ritual. It was something necessary to raise Silas and get that cure that you and your friends want so desperately. And Bonnie's like, if my friends knew people had to die. And Shane interrupts her and says, Silas will bring them back. And Bonnie's like, you're crazy. Which, I guess, yeah, at this point in the show, no one has been brought back to life unless it's from the Gilbert ring. But no, that's true, because Bonnie brought Jeremy back to life using the witch spirit. So you know what? It's actually not out of the realm of possibility that Silas could bring people back to life. Like, what Shane is doing is crazy. Doesn't mean that it's not potentially the truth. And Shane's like, I'm not crazy. I'm just passionate, which is exactly what crazy people say. And Bonnie's like, yeah, you're full on crazy. Good. She's finally realizing this, a little bit late, but I'm not here to victim blame. She goes to leave and Shane gets back on his manipulative-ish and says, do you remember our first session, Bonnie? It was about your grams. You thought that every time you did magic, you were causing her pain. Aren't you curious what's happening to her now? Wouldn't you like to see her again? Ooh! It's getting real manipulative now, playing on Bonnie's grief, because she actually stops in her tracks, looking like she's gonna hear him out. And Bonnie, do you really think that your Grams would want to come back in this way? Or even at all? Like, she's been dead for like 2 or 3 years. I think she's kind of over it at this point. And I think the only reason Sheila hasn't gone to pieces is because she's too busy stuck on the other side helping Bonnie deal with all the mess that she gets herself in, trying to save all of her friends. And I think Sheila wants to stay on the other side because she's big with the spirits and keeping the balance. I think she can do more on the other side than she can on Earth. But Bonnie is obviously desperate because she got used to seeing her Grams every now and then as a ghost. ghost, and now she hasn't seen her at all and doesn't know where she is. The last time she saw her grams, the spirits were punishing her because of what she did. So she's got a lot of guilt holding on to this. So Shane's playing onto that desperation. Hook, line, and sinker. This is what groomers do. They find what is your most vulnerable spot and they exploit it. Couple this with the grief of losing a loved one and preying on their desperation. This is exactly what Shane is doing with Bonnie towards Sheila, with Haley towards her parents, and with Pastor Young towards his dead wife. It's sick. It's sick. He's such an interesting villain though, because he's not like supernatural. He's a human and he has no powers or ability, but his power is in his manipulations and his forethought. He's so smart. I really think people do not give Shane credit for how much of an evil genius he is. We then go over to the grill where Elena and Damon go up to Matt, and Damon's like, ugh, don't you ever get the night off? No, Damon, unlike you and all of your other rich friends, some people have to work. You know, you could give him a bit of the money from your fortune and then you wouldn't have to work. And Matt's like, I just took 2 days off to help you at the lake house, remember? And I almost got killed. Damon doesn't even acknowledge this and just asks where Jeremy is, and Matt's like, he's out the back. So Damon leaves and Elena stays to check that Matt's okay. Damon then spots Jeremy from across the room and he has a murderous look on his face that Jeremy clocks, especially when Damon's eyes get all red and veiny and he starts walking intently towards Jeremy. So Jeremy freaks out, turns around and goes back into the back rooms. But before he can get to him, Damon gets stopped by Elena, who asks if he's okay, and Damon looks back to see that Jeremy is gone. And we go to Jeremy in the back room, who's pointing a gun at the door, getting ready for when Damon comes in. But then he looks down at that vent that is like a secret door into the tunnels that we used back in episode 5. Damon walks into the back room, Jeremy's not there, and Elena comes in and is asking Damon what's going on. And Damon realizes what's happened and says, it's Cole. He must have compelled me. If I find Jeremy, I'm gonna kill him. Before Elena can respond, Damon sees the entrance to the tunnels, Vamp speeds inside, and Elena goes to look in the tunnels, and neither Damon nor Jeremy is there. So now it's a race for time. So Jeremy's in the tunnel with his gun and his torch looking for a way out, and he hears Damon's voice yelling out saying, Jeremy, get out of here. Do you hear me? Don't stop. Cole compelled me. There's nothing I can do. You can't hide, Jer. If I find you, you're dead. And Jeremy makes a noise, Damon hears it, and Vamp speeds in his direction. We then go back to Shane's office where Rebecca and Stefan have tied up this random man and they're torturing him, stabbing him with a knife. And Rebecca says, all you have to do to make this stop is tell me who sent you. She licks his butt off the knife and says, you're full of vervain, so I know you haven't been compelled. And Stefan's like, unless somebody compelled him before he ingested it. And Rebecca's like, he was after the headstone. We need to know who sent him. And Stefan says, okay, fine. So we take him home, wait till the vervain's out of his system and then compel him and get whatever information we want. Sounds like a pretty good plan, but that's not going to happen because then the guy starts choking and spitting out blood, and Stefan looks inside his mouth to see that he chewed out his own tongue. And Rebecca's like, so he does know something, and someone clearly doesn't want us to find out. The guy grabs the knife from Rebecca and stabs himself in the neck, and he bleeds to death. And Stefan's like, I guess he was compelled. And Rebecca's like, was it your bastard brother or mine? And Stefan's like, or maybe it's option number 3. There's another team in the race. This is so interesting that there could be someone else looking for the cure that we might not even know. A mystery third team. And whoever compelled this guy is smart and brutal and thought of everything and is cunning. So who fits those descriptions? I wonder. If you already know, because obviously I know, but like don't spoil it for people who don't know. But I do love the build up. We then go back to the interrogation room where Bonnie says to Shane, you're saying if I help you raise Silas, you can bring my grams back? Don't play on my guilt, Shane. Girl, if you know that he's playing on your guilt, then why are you going along with this? Shane says, I'm not playing on anything. This is the truth. You told me what happened. Your reckless use of magic is the reason. Bonnie interrupts him and says, don't. But he goes on and says, the reason that those spirits are torturing your grams on the other side. Bonnie says, don't again, but Shane goes on saying, hurting her again and again and again. And Bonnie stands up and yells, I said don't. And Shane starts screaming in pain as Bonnie's using her powers to break the bones in his arm. So Shane was obviously egging her on to try and get her to use her expression. And he says to her, you can't stop, can you? All this power that you're feeling, you actually like it. She starts breaking more of his bones. And Shane's like, look at yourself, Bonnie. Rudy then storms into the room because he was presumably watching this on the live feed and came in when he saw Bonnie breaking Shane's bone. And he's like, Bonnie, what the hell are you doing? Bonnie throws water on the ground and lights it on fire, setting a barrier. And he yells at her to stop. And Shane's like, she's lost control. You can't reason with her, Mayor. Yeah, which was your exact goal, Shane. Rudy tries to calm Bonnie down, but it doesn't work. She's like fixated on hurting Shane and everything, consumed by the expression. So Rudy asks Shane to do something. And Shane says, Bonnie, look at me. And she does. And Shane says, take a deep breath. I'm right here with you. You are in complete control. That's it. And this was the exact line he said earlier in his office. So who knows, maybe that was a trigger phrase because that's how hypnosis works, or whatever it is that he's doing to Bonnie. So Bonnie listens to him, stops breaking his bone, and the fire goes away, and a single tear comes down her eye, and she leaves the room, obviously distraught, realizing how much power and control Shane has over her. And Shane says to Rudy, your daughter is a prodigy, and with my guidance, she'll be one of the most powerful witches in the world. But without it, she's a ticking time bomb, which is exactly what you wanted! Oh my god. It's too far gone now. Bonnie is literally Shane's weapon that only he can control. It's fucked. It's fucked. I feel so bad for her. None of you were keeping an eye. This has been going on since, when did she meet Shane? Episode 4, this has been going on. She's been going to his office like every day. Why were you guys not more suspicious? I mean, Caroline was trying to be suspicious in episode 8, but Elena was shutting it down in the name of like Caroline being judgy of Bonnie with Shane and Elena with Damon. Like Caroline was the only one who was suspicious of the Shane situation, but no, Elena had to shut it down. We go back to Shane's office where Stefan and Rebecca are looking at the intruder's dead body, and Stefan gets a phone call, but Rebecca grabs his phone and says, "Hello, Elena." Elena, who's in the tunnel, is like, "What did you do to Stefan?" And Rebecca says, "Rescued him from his old dull life, but it keeps calling." Love that. And she says, "Stefan's not in the mood to talk right now." And Elena's like, "Well, then he can listen. I know you might not care about me right now, Stefan, but Cole compelled Damon to kill Jeremy. And they're somewhere in the tunnels, and it's just like a giant maze down here, and I can't find them. So if you still care about the cure or Jeremy, then maybe you can help." Stefan says nothing, which I mean, kind of fair. He doesn't have to do your bidding or clean up Damon's messes anymore, and he's setting boundaries. But Elena's pissed by this, also rightfully so, because come on, Stefan, just because you and Elena are having issues doesn't mean you shouldn't care about her or Jeremy, etc., etc. So Elena just hangs up the phone, and Rebecca looks to Stefan and says, "Well, this is an interesting predicament for both of us, because at the end of the day, they do still need Jeremy for the cure, so they need to find a way to sort this out." We then go back to the tunnels where we see Jeremy, and he can hear Damon yelling out to him, so we know he's close, and Damon says, "Did you miss the part where I said I'm compelled? Don't stop." But Jeremy instead decides to cut his hand on purpose, and Damon's like, "Seriously? You're being hunted by a vampire and now you're bleeding?" "Well, yeah, King, it's obviously a trap." Damon vamp speeds to where Jeremy was, but he's not there, it's just his jacket with his blood on it. But then Jeremy shows up from behind Damon and has him in a chokehold, which is good that he worked with the element of surprise, but also dumb because he should have just shot him. And Damon bites Jeremy's arm and throws him to the ground and says, "Dumb move, Jer, you can't fight me in close quarters." Jeremy says it was worth a shot though, and he pulls a gun out on Damon and shoots him in the gut, and Damon says, "You're gonna have to shoot me, Jeremy, in the heart. I'm not gonna be able to stop myself, Jeremy. You're a hunter, you know what you gotta do. Do it." So Jeremy shoots him, the screen goes black, but then time passes and Damon wakes up and pulls a bullet out of his head and says, "He shot me in the head. Stupid, idiot, borderline brain dead moron." Well, actually, it was pretty smart, because this way he bought time without having to kill you, because if he killed you, that would have been a whole song and dance for everyone involved. So I think it was actually smart of Jeremy. But Damon yells out and is like, "That's dumb, Jeremy. You should have killed me when you had the chance." He sees blood droplets on the floor and follows them. "Jeremy, why didn't you cover your wounds so you didn't leave a trail for him?" I digress. We then go over to Klaus's mansion where Cole is about to leave, and Rebecca bumps into him and says, "Going somewhere? I would if I were you. If Damon kills the hunter, then Nick won't be pleased." And Cole's like, "I said I wouldn't touch the kid, and I didn't." And Rebecca's like, "Oh, well, that was clever. I'm sure he'll appreciate it." Cole goes to leave, and Rebecca puts a dagger to his back, and Cole's really shocked by this, especially because it's like, Rebecca, like, you are constantly going on and on about how horrible it is that Klaus daggers you all, and it's the worst thing ever, and now you're willing to do it to another sibling? And Cole's like, "You'd really dagger me?" And Rebecca's like, "If I do, then Damon's compulsion ends and all of this is over." Like I said, majorly hypocritical, and Cole says, "You're just no better than Nick Klaus then. Daggering siblings when you disagree with them? Look what this family has become. I mean, Elijah won't even show his face. He's so disgusted by our bickering. This cure has ruined us, and it hasn't even been found yet. Just imagine what would happen if it is." But Rebecca says this family was ruined long before we knew about the cure. It's true, but the speech isn't doing exactly what you would think it is, because then Cole vamp speeds turning around, pointing the white oak stake to Rebecca's heart, which is crazy because that's permanent death, and she's terrified, and Cole's like, "I won't let you raise Silas." So damn, it really is serious for him. But also at the same time, once again with the hypocritical shit, how are you going to give Rebecca shit for daggering you when you're threatening to kill her with the white oak stake? Like, it's a thing that would put you to a slumber versus a thing that would permanently kill her. The hypocrisy in the Michelson family is truly reaching new heights, or should I say new lows. Klaus and vamp speeds into the room, shoving Cole away from Rebecca, and says, "Enough of this foolishness. Put it down, Cole." Cole vamp speeds away with the stake, slamming the door behind him, and Rebecca, shaken up, is like, "He was gonna kill me." And Klaus smirks and says, "Well, then I think you need a lesson in how to properly dagger a sibling." Obviously, Rebecca doesn't like this joke, tells him to burn in hell, and leaves. Once again, you say you're pissed at him for something that you were just about to do. And the last time Klaus daggered Rebecca, it was purely strategic, just like how you were about to dagger Cole, being purely strategic. So I think we should all be able to understand each other a little bit better. Out in the woods, Jeremy is running, but he's hurt. He falls to the ground, looking at his bleeding arm. I thought he just... Oh, yeah, this will be from Damon's bite, not from the cut on his hand. So he's got 2 wounds. And, like, I get that it hurts, but, like, with all due respect, I feel like he's being a bit dramatic. Like, your legs still work, don't they? He hasn't even attempted to tie a tourniquet. Like, he really just sucks at this whole hunter thing. We then go to Damon, who's also in the woods, actively tracking Jeremy, but he then gets stopped by Elena. Not sure how she managed to catch up with him, but she did. And she says, "Damon, stop. I know you don't want to hurt Jeremy, so please stop. But Damon says he can't because he's compelled, and Elena's like, yes, you can. You're strong enough to resist the compulsion. I know you are. And Damon's like, why? Because Stefan did it? Well, yeah, Stefan did try really hard to resist the compulsion, but we all know Stefan's not Damon. But in Damon's defense, Stefan was resisting his compulsion to not kill Elena, and he was in love with Elena. Damon's not in love with Jeremy, so it's not exactly a fair ask from Elena, but if Elena was being smart, she would just snap Damon's neck and put him in a cell until she figured it all out. But instead, she just says, no, because I love you, and because you love me. You do anything for me, so please do this for me. Maybe it's hard to believe because of the sire bond, but either way, Damon barely tries to believe her when he smells Jeremy's blood and is like, I'm sorry, Elena, and just vamp speeds off. He catches up to Jeremy, who points a gun at Damon, and Damon's like, shoot Jeremy now. So Jeremy does, but the bullet doesn't reach Damon because Stefan shows up, vamp speeding Damon away from the bullet against a tree and says, hi brother, long time no see, and snaps Damon's neck, which is what Elena should have done. And yes, long time no see. Damon and Stefan have not interacted these past like 2 episodes, so it's fun to see them back together. Anyway, Elena catches up to all of this and looks at Stefan, and she looks kind of pissed even though he literally did the right thing and helped you. So Stefan's just like, you're welcome. Over at the Salvatore house in the dungeons, Damon wakes up in a cell covered in blood, feeling like shit. Stefan, who's there holding a knife, says, easy there, buddy, you lost a lot of blood. So he's just been cutting Damon, repeatedly draining him of his blood. And Damon's like, you bled me out. And Stefan's like, yeah, I didn't really have much of a choice. We don't have any vervain, so this is the only way that I could weaken you. Damon's like, yeah, you sound really torn up about it. Shouldn't we be going after Cole? Make him decompel me? Which I don't get how you're gonna do that. And Stefan sarcastically is like, yeah, sure. Sounds easy enough, Damon. I'll get right on that. Cause that's a stupid idea. And Damon's like, at least let me see Elena. And Stefan's like, oh, come on. You know you can't do that. With the Cyberbond and all you have to do is to ask her to let you out of here. It's too risky. And Damon's like, you're really enjoying this, aren't you? And yes, he is. As is his right. He didn't orchestrate it, but I think he deserves to enjoy it. He's been through hell. Give him this. You and Elena did something really shitty. Okay? Like, let Stefan have his win. And granted, he's taking it a little bit overboard, but like, who can blame him? And Stefan's like, it's better for Elena if you just stay in here for now, at least until we can find the cure. And then once she's no longer sired to you and you're no longer compelled, you two can do whatever the hell you both want. He then closes the cell door, locking it, and Damon asks him to wait, but he doesn't. He just smiles and leaves, feeling very good about the situation. And when Stefan's upstairs, he bumps into Elena, who just came into the house, and is like going to see Damon, and she says, I need to talk to him, but Stefan's like, well, you can't. He'll just ask you to let him out. And Elena's like, well, I won't let him out. And Stefan's like, well, you won't have a choice. You're sired. She looks annoyed by this, like she keeps looking annoyed when people remind her of this, but like, this is the situation at hand, Elena. No point denying it. And Stefan says to her, is that all? It's so funny seeing him be bitchy to Elena, and this time, he's not a ripper, he doesn't have his humanity off. Stefan's just pissed. Elena's like, actually, that's not all. What are you doing with Rebecca? She tried to kill me. Elena, do you remember when Damon got with Rebecca after she tried to kill you? Like, you got over that. But Stefan's comeback is even better. A comeback I often says, and is like, oh, and this would be the second time that Damon's tried to kill Jeremy, so I guess nobody's perfect, right? Gagged her. I love bitchy Stefan. And it's like so true. Like, Elena is so hypocritical. Get off that moral high ground. Like, we all do shitty things. We all get with shitty people. Like, you just want everything to be what you want it to be when it suits you. Like, she really is frustrating me. I'm trying to hold back because Elena already gets enough hate, but damn, she's pissing me off. She can't deny any of that, and she makes it about herself and is like, you trying to punish me, Stefan? Girl, maybe not everything is about you. I mean, this is kind of about you, but not everything is, okay? At least don't say it is. And Elena's like, I don't know how many times I can apologize. Well, you haven't apologized since last episode when it was way too fresh. And your apologies don't really mean shit because you didn't come clean and you weren't honest. You lied. You did something shitty and then you lied about it. And Stefan's like, I never asked you to apologize, Elena. You can do whatever you want. I really don't care. Now, Stefan, that's an obvious lie. Like, if you didn't care, why else would you be trying to get the cure? But he just doesn't want her to know that he cares. Elena says, you're hurt. You're acting out. Stefan, this isn't you. I love that. I love whenever a pick me is like, this isn't you. And that pick me shit worked before when they were together, but it doesn't now. And Stefan says, sure it is. You've just never seen me like this. You don't know what I look like when I'm not in love with you. And Elena looks shocked. Hurt, ghastly, like how could he say this? As if you didn't say it last episode. Like, I know you were compelled to admit that you're not in love with Stefan anymore, but at the end of the day, why is it so crazy if he's not in love with her? Like, sometimes the way that Elena acts and behaves makes me think that secretly, even though she's not in love with Stefan and even though she doesn't want to be with Stefan, she still wants him to be in love with her and still want to be with her. It's like in her mind, she's like, wait, like I'm so used to both these brothers being obsessed with me and wanting to be with me, and I'm the one who gets to choose who I'm with. Like last time I was with Stefan and Damon was still into me. Now that I'm with Damon, then Stefan should still be obsessed with me and in love with me, right? Like, I know she probably doesn't like actively think that, but I wonder if subconsciously she thinks that. Because like, how are you offended by this? You said the same thing. Like, isn't it good that you're on the same page? Like, would you want him to still be in love with you when you're not? But Elena's too gagged to speak, so Stefan just says, I'll let Damon know you stopped by. And she leaves. Stefan shitted on him. I'm sorry, I know he was a bitch, but I loved Stefan in this episode. And this scene specifically, chef's kiss. We then go over to the girl where Bonnie's sitting with her father and says, I owe you an apology. But he says, you don't owe me anything. I'm not happy to be right, but I'm gonna get you some help. And Bonnie's like, help? Dad, I'm okay. I mean, I got angry, I admit it, but I knew what I was doing. Yeah, sure. Keep saying that to try and convince yourself. But Rudy says, you lost control. And Shane said, and Bonnie's like, didn't we just establish that we couldn't trust him? He's trying to get under your skin. Well, it's working. And Rudy says, the only thing that got under my skin is what I saw, which is my daughter using dangerous magic. And the fact that you don't even think you need help means that you need it even more. And he's right. Finally, you as a parent are actually parenting your child. Wow. What a concept. And it is crazy to me that in order for the writers to actually get Bonnie help, they had to bring a parent of hers who's been absent the whole time onto the show because none of her friends are there to help her. Like, it continues to bother me. Like, the fact that all of this is going on with Bonnie and no check-in, Elena not calling Bonnie like, oh, how you doing? Like, where's the communication? I feel like Bonnie is so on the sidelines. It really upsets me. Anyway, back at the Gilbert house, Elena and Jeremy hear a knock at the front door. They open it and it's Klaus, who says, good evening, Gilbert clan. He obviously can't get in because he still hasn't been compelled. And Elena's like, what do you want? And Klaus is like, I just came to fetch my hunter. Seeing as how my brother's now become a liability, Jeremy will be much safer with me. He's always thinking he can just like take anyone willy-nilly and they're gonna go with him easily. And to be fair, he has had success a couple times, like when he kidnapped Elena. But Jeremy just says, I think I'll pass. I've killed enough people for you today. Jeremy, you killed one vampire. Klaus says, you think that you're safer here? Clearly you don't know, Cole. He'll stop at nothing to get what he wants. As strange as it may seem, I'm your best bet. Which, to be fair, I do think is true. Like when they were all up in arms about Klaus kidnapping Elena when she had the curse. Did he not keep her protected from killing herself? And the only way that she was about to kill herself is when you guys intervened? Like, as long as Klaus wants the same thing as you, he's gonna keep you safe. But obviously I get why they don't trust Klaus. So Elena says, sorry, but I think we'd rather just take our chances. And Klaus says, fine, but when Cole does come, and he will, be sure to let me know, preferably before he burns your nice little home to the ground. And as for you, Hunter, there's no shortage of people to turn or loved ones to threaten. So sleep well. We'll be finishing our work tomorrow. Ooh. That is a threat. He leaves, and I guess so much for it's over, right, Elena, when you said that earlier being all naive. Klaus is obviously going to continue turning people. He doesn't care, so you might as well just kill the vampires he turns because you'll be saving more lives in the long run. You know? Like, just think about it. If you had just killed all those vampires instead of hiding in the house, you would have completed the mark, Cole wouldn't have killed them, and then Klaus wouldn't have to turn more vampires. Like, it just, your morality is actually getting in the way and actually, like, killing off more innocent people when you really think about it, so. Anyway, we go over to Rebecca's house. She's in her bedroom drinking a Cosmo. She's still shaken from her brother trying to kill her, understandably so. Stefan comes in and Rebecca's like, just barge right in, why don't you? And Stefan's like, well, I thought not knocking was our thing. Ooh, cute little flirtation situation. And he says, so you didn't dagger Cole? And Rebecca's like, well, the white oak stake pointed at my heart made things a little difficult. I do believe my brother Cole has officially lost his mind. And Stefan says, well, that's all right. Jeremy's still alive and I took care of Damon, so where'd you put it? And Rebecca's like, the headstone, someplace safe. And Stefan's like, well, that wasn't really part of our deal. And Rebecca's like, well, considering you've betrayed me twice and I've betrayed you never, I think I'm acting brilliantly. Well, you did betray him when you went back on your deal and drove Elena off the bridge, lest we forget, but in this situation you haven't betrayed him, so I'll give you that. And Rebecca's like, especially since we have no idea who that guy was looking for it and why. And it's good for Rebecca to keep her guard up because people do love to backstab her, and at least she knows that she has an advantage in this race. And I think it's smart not to fully trust Stefan yet because he could flip on her. I respect the way that she's handling this. But anyway, she's horny, so she changes the subject and says, did you work things out with Elena? And Stefan's like, do you care? And Rebecca's like, nope. Just trying to figure out why you're here. And he's like, do you even have to ask? Ooh, it's getting hot and heavy and steamy up in here. This is way hotter than when Damon got with Rebecca. That was gross. This is hot. So Rebecca says, no feelings, no attachments, which with these two seems unlikely. And given Rebecca's track record, we saw how much she got butthurt after Damon slept with her. So girl, it's better you be honest with yourself and realize that this is going to affect you. But Stefan says, none whatsoever. So they got a little friends with benefits situation going on here, and they start making out, undressing on the bed. It's getting all hot and heavy. And as long as Rebecca realizes she's a rebound for Stefan, for Elena, then this is okay. But does she realize that? I don't know. And I feel like she's going to get hurt in the long run. And also, it is kind of pathetic that Rebecca keeps sleeping with the guys that are in love with Elena, considering Elena's her arch nemesis. I digress. So anyway, back at the Gilbert house, Jeremy is talking to Elena and is like, this is never gonna end. If Cole doesn't kill me first, then Klaus is just gonna force me to kill more and more innocent people. How many is it gonna take? 10? 100? Which, to be fair, this is a good point because they don't know how many vampires Jeremy has to kill to complete his mark. I mean, Connor Jordan probably killed a lot of vampires and his mark didn't complete. So I get why Jeremy is scared about this because he doesn't want to kill innocent people. But once again, I said go back to the criminal thing because how long do you think you can hunt around for actual vampires to kill? Like Klaus is not gonna be okay with that. Just go to a prison, go to the area where they keep the people who do horrible things to children, or go to like the White House and get all the horrible conservatives. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are ways around this. But anyway, I get it. We need conflict for the show, so I really need to stop with that point. But after Jeremy says, how many vampires is it going to take? 100? Elena has a realization. Her first time being smart all episode, if not all season. She actually turned on her brain. And she says, if you kill one original vampire, their entire sideline will die along with them. That's thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of vampires. Cole compelled Damon to kill you. You're going to kill Cole instead. Boom. Clap, and that is the end of the episode. And this is very, very smart because yes, not only does it undo the compulsion from Damon, so then Jeremy won't be killed by Damon, but yes, Jeremy's mark will be completed like that because it'll kill off all the vampires. Now it is a little unethical because like a bunch of innocent vampires are just going to be killed in one fell swoop and have no idea. And like once again we go back to Stefan and Caroline wanting to stake Rebecca so easily last episode, but then Stefan gave that big speech to Elena in episode 3 of like, if you kill an original, then tens of thousands of innocent vampires will die along with them. Like our actions have consequences. I guess we don't care about that anymore. But you know what? It's better than like killing innocent humans. It's already vampires that have probably lived long enough. Whatever. But then you're going to face the wrath of Klaus. He's not going to be okay with you guys killing his siblings. Now, obviously, they saw how he reacted to Finn and he didn't care, but he hates Finn. He doesn't care about Finn. With Cole, it's going to be very different. And they're not really seeming to consider that. But this is a lot of stuff that we're going to deal with in the next episode. But outside of those couple flaws, this is a great, smart plan. So thank you, Elena, for using your brain because I was worried that you didn't have one. But anyway, let's go ahead and see how that turns out in the next episode, Season 4, Episode 12, titled A View to Kill. So this episode begins in Rebecca's bedroom where Stefan wakes up next to her naked after a night of crazy sex, we can only assume. But Stefan's face, it's instantly giving regret. And this really fun song plays, a really sexy song actually, called Just Another Girl by Wild Belle. Cut your lips upon her body. Did I treat you right? I'm just another girl. I don't know why, but I love this scene. Anytime I get to it, it's just such a sexy scene to me. The way he wakes up and he's like kind of titillated but kind of ashamed, picks up Rebecca's arm off of him so he can slyly get out of the bed. He vamp speeds over to the chair, throws his clothes on. Just the way he does the whole thing, chef's kiss. But the sexiness stops there because when he gets to the door and opens it, who's standing there but none other than Klaus, who says, leaving so soon? And he smiles and Stefan's like, well, shit. Damn. We skip a little bit ahead in time where Rebecca has woken up and she comes out of her ensuite putting on a robe and says, this is my place, Nick, and I don't appreciate you invading my privacy like some kind of creeping Tom. And yes, it is really creepy on a normal level, but even more creepy considering this was her brother. Like, did Klaus open the bedroom door, look in to see Rebecca and Stefan, and was like, ooh, this is messy, I'm gonna wait outside the door. Like, that is creepy. Klaus says, well, I apologize for breaking up this sordid little tryst, but I do have some urgent business. Or have you forgotten how our paranoid brother Cole is running around with the white oak stake and homicide on the brain? And Rebecca's like, how could I forget? He tried to kill me last night? Klaus says, yes. Well, unfortunately, he seems to have absconded with my set of daggers. What is with these originals not taking care of the few things that actually harm them? Like, Rebecca had the white oak stake, and then it got taken by Cole, and then Klaus's daggers got taken by Cole. Like, you would think that Klaus would have those in the safest place possible, like he would cover those daggers so much, and Cole, who doesn't even live in that house, is just able to steal them? Like, you guys really need to get it together. But anyways, Rebecca says, oh, poor Nick, how will you ever get away without your precious daggers? They were so handy when you wanted to end a conversation with one of us. Fair enough, as we know from the last couple episodes, Rebecca is still pissed with her last meeting from the dagger, but lest we forget that you wanted to dagger Cole. A hypocrite. So unfortunately, your point on this situation is moot. It's very pot kettle. But I also do understand that it's kind of an unfair balance because there is no dagger that works on Klaus. So he's got more power in the situation. Anyway, we can't talk about the optics of a dagger too much. We've done that at nauseum. Klaus says Cole's irrational fear of Silas has put him over the edge. We need to put him down before he does any more damage. Now I know you have the lost dagger and I know you have some white oak ash, so hand it over. And Klaus, why the hell would she do that? And Rebecca says, and leave myself unprotected? You can file that request under no chance in hell. Cole. Now, like I said, I understand why Rebecca doesn't want to give the one and only dagger that she has to Klaus, but why would he use it on her in this circumstances? Like, Cole is a much bigger problem. So if she could get past that paranoia, she could just give the dagger to Klaus, he could dagger Cole. We all know he's very good at that. And the series of events that take place in this episode could have gone very differently. Just saying. And even though you're not getting along with Klaus right now, at least you essentially have the same goal, which is to find the cure, and neither of you care about waking Silas, so it's really only Cole that you should be opposed to. But we all know Klaus and Rebecca are not good at working together. Rebecca's not interested in talking anymore and just tells Klaus to be gone by the time she's done in the shower, and she goes in the bathroom, turns on said shower so she won't be able to hear them, and Klaus says to Stefan, I need that dagger. Talk some sense into her. So he just found out that Stefan and Rebecca have slept together, and already Klaus is trying to use that to his advantage. Stefan's like, why don't you talk some sense into her? Which is obviously stupid. Like, Stefan, you're the one person Rebecca even trusts right now, so just do it. Everyone is so combative. Like, let's just work together as a team. Stefan goes on saying, I'm headed home to play prison guard to Damon. He's on lockdown ever since Cole compelled him to kill Jeremy last night, which, Stefan, doesn't really matter that much. You left Damon alone all night while you was screwing Rebecca. But Klaus just says, you see, that's my point exactly. If we let Cole roam free, then Jeremy won't live to see his junior prom, and we can all kiss our map to the cure goodbye. But if you help me dagger Cole, Damon will be uncompelled, Jeremy will live, and we'll all be on our merry way to a human Elena. Exactly. Like, once again, I have to point out that Klaus has the best solutions to everything. Like, dagger Cole and all your problems are solved. We then go to the Mystic High School where Bonnie is in the gym blowing up some balloons for the dance while talking on the phone to Elena, and she says, I told Caroline that I would take her place at Decade Dance Prep, but none of you showed. So yeah, no Caroline in this episode or the last one. She has been missed, but we'll get back with her in the next part. Elena on the other line, who's at home cleaning up after Jeremy and Matt, who are playing video games, says, I know, I'm sorry, I had to though. I have Jeremy under house arrest because Cole wants to kill him and Klaus wants to take him on some vampire slaying road trip. And since neither of them have been invited in, our house is the only safe place for Jeremy. Yes, I understand this, but keeping Jeremy safe doesn't mean you have to become his housemaid, Elena. I'm sure him and Matt can clean up after themselves. I really don't like the dynamics in this scene. On the other line, Bonnie can hear guns shooting, and she's like, why does it sound like you're under fire? But of course, it's just Jeremy's video game, and Elena says out loud so Jeremy and Matt can hear her, apparently I'm living in a fraternity house now, and Jeremy's like, we're training. Jeremy, you should take this shit seriously, and see, you had so much lip towards Klaus and Damon, but one day without them, and you're sitting your ass on the couch playing video games instead of actually training. Elena grabs some more dirty dishes from the dining table, which is also covered in steaks and other weapons towards vampires that are not being used or dealt with. And she's like, why don't you train yourself to do some dishes and put these weapons away before someone tries to use it on me? Like, if Elena has to stay at home, why is she being their maid? Lord knows she's got a bunch of homework and assignments and studying to catch up on because she never goes to school. Bonnie on the other line is like, well, it's hard for me to look forward to this dance while you're trapped in your house. And Elena's like, listen, okay, I have a plan to end all of this. I want Jeremy to kill Cole. Bonnie's shook by this and whispers in her phone, you want him to kill an original? Because that's not exactly something our characters are doing every day. Elena explains her reasoning, saying, think about it, Cole's sire line must stretch to the moon by now. If Jeremy kills him, then not only will Cole die, but every vampire that he's ever turned will as well. Not to mention everyone they've ever turned will die, which means the Hunter's Mark will be complete and we'll have our key to finding the cure. Great plan, but I will continuously point out you're not thinking about the retaliation from Klaus. Bonnie's pretty much on board straight away and says she's going to come over to help figure out a plan, and Elena on the other line goes to turn on the tap to do the dishes, but she screams because the water burns her hands, and Bonnie asks what's going on because Elena drops her phone, but she picks it back up and is like, I don't know, there's something in the water. Elena, you dumbass, what do you think it is? Vervain. Speaking of, we cut to Bonnie in the hallway in the high school and she's on the phone with her dad, Rudy Hopkins, interim mayor, and she's like, are you serious? You dumped Vervain into the water supply? Now this is smart. I'm not sure why you guys haven't been doing this since. We know that Liz and the Lockwoods were putting Vervain in the coffee pot at the grill, but this is a much better way of doing things. Just dump it in the water supply. Also, I thought we didn't have any Vervain. I thought the council blew what up. So where did Rudy get it from? And Bonnie asks him the same thing, but Rudy just says, I have my sources, and we never find out what those sources are. Like, our gang could use some Vervain. He goes on saying, I'm also reinstating the curfew and canceling all town events. Now, how's he gonna explain to the town why he's doing this? Because the last time they did this, we saw Tyler get shut up in front of the whole town at the church, but now what's the reasoning? Is he just gonna be like, oh, you know that guy that shot the teenager that we never found? We have suspicions that he's back. It's actually crazy when you think about what normal people in this town think is going on. I love watching TikToks of like, you go to school with Elena Gilbert, and it's like people being like, why is she with the older brother? Why is it doing, like, I love that kind of stuff because it is just that crazy when you think about it. Bonnie's like, but there's a dance on tonight, and Rudy's like, not anymore, and Bonnie's really pissed by this, and Rudy's like, honey, I'm trying to protect you, not punish you. The well-being of this town is my job now. But Bonnie's like, no, it's mine, Dad, and I've been doing fine without you getting involved. Bonnie, you know I love you, and I think you're the MVP of the team, but has the town been doing that great? I mean, what with all the gas leaks and people getting fed on, and your biggest ally has manipulated 2 mass murderers. Shall I go on? I think not. Rudy says, you've been doing fine? Would you like me to read all the names of the people who've gone missing or died in tragic accidents in just your senior year alone? I'm assuming it's a long list, and Rudy has got a point here, and he says, head straight home, please. We're having a family meeting. He ate her up a little bit. I do have to say, it's refreshing to see a parent actually stand on business. Although, he doesn't have much credit because where have you been this whole time? So Bonnie hangs up the phone and then suddenly Cole comes out of nowhere, vamp speeding, pinning her against a locker, and he says, no one's gonna find the cure if you're too dead to find it. Smart of him to kill Bonnie. Obviously I don't want that, but it is smart. Kill the witch, you can do the spell, and also Bonnie is the descendant of Ketsia. Like there's a lot of links where they need Bonnie to find this, right? But instead of actually killing Bonnie straight away, he gives her time to do something about it because Cole just loves a quippy line. So Bonnie starts doing an aneurysm spell on Cole, but it's a lot more intense, similarly to what she did to Shane last episode. So she's using her expression magic to break Cole's bones. Balloons are popping, lockers are swinging open, and Cole's like in agony as his bones break. It's very intense. It's not the kind of aneurysms that we're used to. And Bonnie stops the spell, looking really scared because she lost control once again, and she just runs away. And could you imagine if one of the students saw that? Or like the janitor comes in there and he's like, damn, now I gotta clean this up. Like, what the hell is this? Do they not have security cameras? Like, we can't. But it is fun to think about. We then go to the Salvatore dungeon where Damon wakes up in his cell with Stefan standing at the door and he's like, ugh, you've come to snap my neck again? Because I woke up feeling completely unmotorous and I'm pretty sure that it's safe to set me free. How much do you really love Elena if you're willing to be set free and kill her brother? Stefan at the door says nothing but just throws Damon a small vial of blood and Damon's like, man, really? You practically bled me dry. At least spring for a bag or something. I'm thirsty. And so Stefan places a bottle of water. Do you think vampires need water? Or does it just help keep their mouth hydrated? Like, what is the purpose of that? But anyway, Damon in his weakened state walks over to the cell door to get the water and Stefan moves out the way and now Klaus is standing there because he's gonna babysit Damon so that Stefan can go and deal with Rebecca. Stefan hands Klaus some blood and says give him a vial every couple of hours so he doesn't desiccate. If he gets too much strength back or if he just annoys you, bleed him out again. And Damon's like, silent treatment, huh? Is that your best shot? Obviously he hasn't been talking to him and continues not to. So Damon says to Klaus, he's still pissed at me for sleeping with Elena. Well, yeah, Damon, he should be. Klaus, who is so happy to drop this bomb as if it isn't his sister, says, you sure about that? Because I caught him trying to sneak out of Rebecca's bed this morning, which would suggest to me that he's moved on. And Damon's like, well, looks like my brother ripped out a page of my revenge sex handbook. Yeah, you guys really gotta stop sleeping with the same woman. You're now 3 for 3. Catherine, Elena, and Rebecca. It's getting weird. Also, Klaus doesn't seem uncomfortable with this conversation at all, as if they're not talking about his literal sister. Also, Rebecca, please stand up, because you're letting both of these Salvatore men use you as a rebound to get over the girl who's your arch nemesis. Please, I beg, find someone else to sleep with. Stefan's not biting on this and just says to Klaus, well, why don't you two enjoy your little villain bonding time? I'll let you know when I get the dagger from Rebecca. And he leaves, and we catch up with Stefan walking upstairs on his way out when he gets a call from Elena. He considers not answering it, but eventually does, and just says, Damon's fine. I locked him up with all the creature comforts he deserves, which is funny because Damon doesn't even have a pillow. He's just raw dogging it on the ground. Elena's like, that's not why I called. Cole tried to kill Bonnie. She managed to hold him off, but he seems pretty intent on murdering everyone who's looking for that cure. And Stefan's like, yeah, Klaus has me trying to convince Rebecca to give me the dagger so he can take care of Cole. And Elena's like, I don't want to just dagger Cole. I want Jeremy to kill him. Stefan, who's outside by now, realizes that Klaus could very well eavesdrop on this conversation and that would not be good. So he turns on his motorcycle engine to drown out their conversation. And Elena on the other line of the phone says, Bonnie has all this crazy new power. Yeah, Elena, why don't you question where that power is coming from? Anyway, she goes on saying Bonnie thinks that if she can hold Cole down for long enough, then Jeremy can get a clean shot. Stefan, who's the only one really thinking clearly at the moment, says, and then what? Klaus and Rebecca will kill every one of us out of spite. They may be dysfunctional, bickering lunatics, but they stick together no matter what. And Elena's like, well, that's why you need to find the dagger and then use it on Rebecca. She can't come looking for revenge if she's just laying in a box. Damn, Elena really does not give two shits anymore about Rebecca. Then again, why should she? She killed her. Let's just dagger her again. Makes sense. But at the same time, it doesn't, because Rebecca's gonna wake up eventually because Klaus can't be daggered, so he'll just wake her up and they'll get revenge on you guys. And you can't put Klaus down. Look what happens every time you guys try. This plan just seems way too risky. And Stefan says to Elena, I can't do that. And we can kind of read on his face that's because he feels guilty about daggering Rebecca. I think Stefan does have a lot of feelings towards Rebecca. Not that he's like in love with her or anything, but I think he has sympathy and care and pity. I mean, even when he helped Klaus dagger her in episode 4, he was crying, so he clearly felt bad. But Elena on the other line thinks he just means he can't do it like logistically and says, I know you can't because vampires can't use the dagger. We remember that lore from season 2, which, you know what, we've never actually seen that happen because Damon was warned, so he didn't do it. I would like to see that. I've never seen a vampire die from using the dagger. Like, maybe the originals just made that up so other vampires wouldn't try daggering them. Elena says Matt, however, can dagger Rebecca, which we know Matt would enjoy that. And Elena says it's not like she doesn't deserve it. And Bonnie thinks she she can get class out of the picture too, at least temporarily. Key word there, temporarily. But alas, this is the crux of Elena's plan and why she's not worried, because she says, once we get the cure, none of this will matter anyway because we can use it against them. So now they're planning on using the cure as a weapon against the originals to make them mortal, even though they don't have confirmation that if they make them mortal and kill them, that they won't die along with them. Like, we don't know if they become mortal if the sire line is severed or not. So we're going off a lot of assumptions, a lot of risks. This is why we don't really go along with Elena's plans. But Stefan ultimately decides to be all in and says, all right, fine, but how do you plan on luring Cole in? We then cut to Cole. It's nighttime now and he's walking through a suburban street listening to music when he gets a phone call. He answers it saying, Jeremy Gilbert, nice to hear that I'm still on speed dial, mate. You want to meet up in the batting cages in Denver? I gotta stop with the accents. I can't. But guys, his accent is just such a mess. However, it's not Jeremy on the phone. It's actually Elena. One thing about Elena today, she is on the phone. And she is in the dining room with Matt and Jeremy, who are like gathering their weapons and stuff, getting sorted. And Cole's like, what a treat. Yeah, I was just thinking of all the clever ways that I could have your brother killed, but I would settle for ripping off his illustrated arm instead. Elena says, I want to call a truce in the name of Silas. I'll meet you wherever you want. I'll come to you. And Cole says, tell you what, how about I come to you? The three of them then hear the doorbell ring to their surprise, and Matt and Jeremy get their crossbow and gun ready. Cole's on the porch yelling out, open the door and invite me in. Elena's caught off guard by this, so she stalls and says, wouldn't it be kind of stupid of me to invite you in? As she grabs a chalkboard from the kitchen on the wall and starts writing a message to Matt and Jeremy, so obviously Cole won't be able to vampire them. And Cole from the porch says, on the contrary, I can't kill your brother with my own two hands, or I'll suffer the hunter's curse and spend the next 20 years trying to off myself in gruesome ways. Elena shows the message she wrote to Matt that says, help Stefan find the dagger. So Matt leaves and she writes a message on the chalkboard for Jeremy, while Cole goes on saying, and I've heard that Vervaine's back in town, so I can't compel you to kill him either. Though I think it's fair to say that you're semi-safe for now. Elena shows the message to Jeremy, which says, go get Bonnie, but Jeremy whispers, I'm the only one that can invite him in, because obviously remembering that Elena's technically dead since she's a vampire, so Jeremy owns this house. Who are you? I'm the owner of this house. Cole on the phone says he's right, obviously, because he heard him with his vampiring. So the two of the Gilberts go to open the door, and Cole pauses his music. You'd think being alive for over 1,000 years would teach me some manners, but I just couldn't resist stopping by. Elena says, if I let you in, my brother goes. You're not getting near him. And Cole says, fair enough, because now he can come in whenever he wants, because he's about to get invited in. So Jeremy, who's standing all the way at the back door with his crossbow, says, you can come in, and then he quickly leaves. Cole comes in smiling and says, no gold medal for bravery, I see. Which, Cole, what do you expect? You keep threatening to chop off his arms. Cole starts wrapping his headphone wires around his iPod, which I don't know why there's so much focus on the headphones and the iPods in this episode, because I don't think Apple does sponsorships. But anyway, he says, another thing I love about the modern age is music, anytime you like. But maybe this is kind of like enchanted baloney kind of BS, even though he's been undaggered now for a while. But, you know, he's appreciating life, he's living it to the fullest. He goes and puts the iPod in his jacket pocket, and Elena looks down and sees the white oak stake, huge white oak stake just poking out of his jacket pocket. These originals are not inconspicuous at all. It's becoming a bit of a joke. Like, he's only making things easier for them because now they don't have to find the stake because it's right there. We then go over to Rebecca's house. She's in her bedroom and Stefan arrives. He's standing at the doorframe and she's looking at a bunch of different clothing racks trying to figure out what she's wearing to the school dance, because one thing about Rebecca, even though she's never been to one because she keeps getting daggered, she takes school dances very seriously. So as she's sifting through the clothing rack, she says, the colors, the fabric, the 80s were just tragic. And you know what, this tracks because Rebecca seems like the kind that wouldn't be too into 80s fashion. She's much more into like a grungy 90s look, I think. But of course, she didn't live through any of the cool decades because Claus had her daggered from the 20s to 2011. Some would say that she went down during the height of fashion and woke up during the lows of it. Let's just say I haven't quite come around looking fondly on 2010s fashion like most. Stefan's like, so you're looking for something to wear to the dance? And Rebecca's like, why? Are you asking me as your date? And Stefan's like, actually, it was cancelled. Rebecca's face drops because you know she's pissed. All this girl wants is to go to a school dance. Like the first time at the homecoming dance, she got daggered by Elena. Then at the 1920s dance, which was supposed to be the 1970s dance, until Rebecca co-opted it and took it away from Caroline. So you know she would have slayed that. Like, she had true vintage clothes from the 1920s. She didn't get to go because her mother Esther possessed her body. And it's crazy to think that now the person that's stopping Rebecca from going to a school dance, the closest she's ever gotten to it, is none other than Rudy Hopkins of all people. But anyway, she goes on to Stefan and says, so why are you here? Back for more dagger talk? And he says, somebody has some trust issues. Well, yeah, Stefan, you helped dagger her. This is why Rebecca is crazy, because she has people making her feel crazy. Rebecca says, it's called healthy skepticism. I know you were trying to sneak out this morning. I'm not stupid. Well, no shit, Rebecca. What gave it away? The fact that he wasn't sleeping next to you, or the fact that he was fully dressed at the front door? She does seem kind of hurt by this, and Stefan says, sorry, I'm just trying to get used to all of this. Get used to what? Sleeping with someone that doesn't look like Elena? Like, you literally are just going back to someone you've already slept with. It's really not that crazy. Rebecca asks Stefan if he has any regrets, and he says no, and she asks if he wants it to happen again, and he says maybe. He's putting the flirt on, and it's working. Rebecca's easy to flirt with. And she says, even if I don't give you the dagger, and he says, you think I would sleep with you just to get the dagger? Well, yes. Yes, we all think that. This is also just classic deflection, answering a question with another question. And Rebecca says, don't give me that innocent look. You've done plenty in the name of getting what you want. Well, I guess I should just pack up all these racks. Just another failed attempt at getting to a high school dance. And Stefan asks her, why do you care so much about high school dances anyway? And Rebecca lies and says, I don't. I was just bored. Rebecca, please. We have enough reasons to laugh at you. Stefan says, right, well, we can still go if you want. And Rebecca's like, not if it's cancelled. And Stefan's like, since when do you care about the rules? That's so cute. Not gonna lie. So Stefan's finally gonna give Rebecca what she wants, her very own high school dance, and a private one at that, and a date with her boothang Stefan. It's really smart of Stefan to do this because he's giving Rebecca exactly what she wants, helping her feel human and normal, and in turn she will trust him and possibly give him the dagger. Oh, it's way too easy with Rebecca. She's such a lover girl. Speaking of lover girl, if you haven't seen my video where I talk about the different what Vampire Diaries characters or what Taylor Swift eras, definitely check it out because I had a lot to say about Miss Rebecca. Well, kind of all the characters, but yeah. We then go back to the Salvatore dungeons. It looks like Klaus finally gave Damon a pillow. He's nicer than Stefan. And Damon's laying down, bouncing a ball while Klaus is pacing around. He says, you know, none of this would have been an issue if you had just done your job properly. I was perfectly willing to let you train Jeremy. And Damon's like, no, you weren't. Are you kidding? You got there on like day 2. Yeah, but Jeremy hadn't killed any vampires in that time. We all know Klaus isn't exactly patient, except for when he had to wait like almost 1,000 years to break the hybrid curse. But anyway, Damon says, do you know how hard it is to get these Xbox brains to focus? Classic, oh, these kids and their devices. Damon, you lucky you weren't dealing with him in the year of 2026 with TikTok brain rot. But this doesn't satisfy Klaus, who says, and then when I turned a room full of barflies into vampires for him to slaughter, you let Cole kill them. And Damon's like, that's your brother problem, not mine, buddy. Well, you both could have handled that better. But Klaus doesn't want to take any responsibility because he's like, whose bright idea was it to saddle Jeremy with a conscience? Referring to in episode 9 when Shane did hypnotism with Jeremy to link his conscience to Bonnie so that he wouldn't kill his sister and all the other vampires. And Damon says, well, we couldn't exactly have him staking Elena in his sleep, now could we? And Klaus says, ah, yes, for the love of Elena. How is it she manages to overlook every horrific thing you've done? Is it willful ignorance or perhaps something more pathological? Damon's like, some people are just more capable of forgiveness than others. Yeah, Elena does forgive a lot of the shit Damon does. Also, you're willing to forgive people that you love because like love releases isn't it oxytocin? Like love makes you crazy, makes you accept crazy things. That explains that. And Klaus says, come on, there must be a secret. It can't just be the sire bond. What is it? Compulsion? Manipulation? Damon doesn't respond. He just keeps playing with his ball. And Klaus drops the jokey act and gets serious and is like, what is it that you say to her? Klaus is really revealing himself now. It started off as a joke, but now Klaus is being sincere and actually trying to get relationship advice from Damon because obviously he's worried about what Caroline thinks of him. But I just think it's really funny how the originals are just so emotional. Like they put on these fronts and they're just so tough and crazy and cynical and they do horrible things, but then they're also just like such softies. Like they just feel the range of emotions to such extremes. I love it. There's just so much to mine with them all. This is why I can't wait to get to the originals. If you guys want that from me, of course, let it be known in the comments. So Damon clocks this and sits up. It's interesting to him now when he says, oh, I see. I think this has something to do with a certain blonde vampire. I think that you murdered Carol Lockwood, and I think you're worried that Caroline's never going to forgive you. All this mention of Caroline in this episode is only highlighting how she's not here. Where is she? Maybe she's just been comforting Tyler this whole time, which, you know, fair, he needs it. Klaus says to Damon, you've done worse. And Damon's like, debatable. Because yeah, Klaus, you killed someone's parent, and this isn't the first time you've killed people's family. Like the only time Damon's technically done that is when he killed Isabel, Elena's birth mother, but he didn't even know Elena then, and Isabel wanted to be a vampire, so I don't think that really counts. But lest we forget, Damon used and abused Caroline, and tried to kill her, and tried to kill Bonnie, and actually did kill Jeremy. Like, Damon used to do a lot of bad shit. It's only in recent times that he's evolved past this, so he should step down from that moral high ground just a bit. But Damon says, see, I don't mind being the bad guy, because somebody has to fill that role to get things done. You do bad things for no reason. You do them just to be a dick. Klaus says, debatable. Which, yeah, sometimes Damon has done bad things to be a dick, but not as of late. Like, Damon really does do bad things with a purpose, right? And Klaus, you did just kill Carol to get revenge. It wasn't really necessary. And Damon says to Klaus, if you're gonna be bad with purpose. Otherwise, you're just not worth forgiving. Damn, I love that. Damon is sounding really secure in himself and his relationship with Elena because it's really not that hard when he compares himself to Klaus and how he's doing with Caroline. And also, I do love this kind of conversation we've been having surrounding Klaus and people doing bad things and whether or not they're forgiving and how we've all done bad things and it's all relative. It really is like working towards humanizing Klaus and the originals because they are anti-heroes. You know, I feel like in season 3 there was this focus on the originals being the villains, and of course with the Vampire Diaries, the villains are not just like one note, like they have reasons for why they're doing what they're doing. We do have aspects that humanize them, like for example Catherine being the villain of season 2, but then we see why she is the way that she is, when her family was killed, when she lost her baby, when she was, you know, forced to be in the blood sacrifice for the hybrid curse with Klaus, and she was manipulated by Klaus and Elijah, and she ran, and all that kind of stuff. Like, we understand why she was the way she is. And then same thing with Klaus, you know, with everything with his abusive father Michael, and feeling othered to his siblings because of, you know, being the product of an affair, and, you know, the hybrid thing. Like, we understand all that, but I feel like this season is different with the originals. It's going beyond just, you know, humanizing them because they're villains with a purpose. It's now like they're actually kind of anti-heroes. Like, our characters are starting to like care for them or root for them or understand them, or it's just different. We're like sort of on the same team, but the lines are blurred. I don't know. I really like it. I feel like the way that they handled the originals in season 4 is really interesting and does really well for getting us ready for spin-off time. Over at the Gilbert house, Cole is playing video games when Elena comes back in with a bottle of gin saying, "Sorry, I had to dig up the old people alcohol." How is gin old people alcohol? Anyway, Cole pauses his game and says, "Yeah, that's the problem with people today. They have no drinking imagination. Turn of the century New Orleans, now they knew how to make a drink." Elena, who's grabbing some supplies to make a gin and tonic, says, "You lived in New Orleans?" Foreshadowing. Obviously, we had the flashback scenes in episode 8 of New Orleans. Now, Cole is talking about New Orleans. They are revving up to the spin-off, baby. And Cole says, "We all lived there until Nick Klaus shoved a dagger in my heart." And Elena's like, "Why? What did you do?" And this pisses Cole off, rightly so, saying, "What makes you think I did anything? Has your alliance with my brother softened you to his horrors?" And Elena's like, "I don't have an alliance with Klaus. We have a mutual interest in finding the cure, and I'm willing to give up looking for it if you promise to leave my brother alone. Now, will you teach me how to make this?" So Cole grabs the items from Elena. He's softening up because it seems believable that Elena is willing to give it up for Jeremy. I mean, Cole knows how much she loves him. So Elena smiles and says she's gonna go get some ice, and behind the door of the fridge, she goes on her phone while Cole is making the drink. They're essentially making their own tonic water with a soda stream. Just like buy tonic water. Like, let's get a move on. This whole thing just makes no sense. How he's like, people are not creative. Like, this is not a creative cocktail. And she gets a text from Jeremy saying that he's still trying to find Bonnie, so keep him there. We see Jeremy walking in the street, leaving Bonnie a voicemail, but she's not answering his phone, so he says that he's gonna go over to her house. When Elena closes the fridge door, Cole is standing there and he gives her a bit of a fright. So she's spooked, but she hands him the ice and he finishes off the drinks, and Elena's making conversation and is like, "You're really good at that video game, especially considering you've been locked in a coffin for 100 years. And Cole says, "Well, I'm a quick learner, Spidey reflexes. It's not like the real thing though, is it? You've killed, haven't you? Or are you one of those Mary Sue vampires?" Elena drinks her G&T and says, "No, I've killed once." Obviously referring to Connor, and says, "But I'm guessing your number is a lot higher than mine." And Cole's like, "You lose track over the years. So, are we going to talk about Silas or just jibber jabber?" To be fair, Cole, you're doing most of the jibber jabbering, making all these pontifications on how society is so different and everything's so doomed. You know what? He wasn't wrong, because 15 years later, and that is more true than it was back in 2011. Elena gestures to the couch, and Cole goes to sit down, and she checks her phone behind the counter, and it's a text from Matt saying he hasn't found the dagger yet, and he needs more time. We then see Matt in Rebecca's bedroom digging around looking for the dagger. I'm not sure how we got in there. I guess Rebecca doesn't lock her house door. None of these vampires do. Back with Elena, she goes over to Cole and says, "So no one else seems to think that Silas exists, so why do you?" And Cole says, well, I used to run with some witches in Africa in the 14th century, Haiti in the 17th century, and New Orleans in the 1900s. They all knew about Silas, and they knew that he needed to stay buried. So I'm not sure how Klaus and Rebecca hadn't heard about Silas, but maybe Cole just wasn't around. Cole seems to like witches, so he probably kept this information private. He even says, "I actually hold witches in high esteem," he says after trying to kill one earlier that day. Also, in the previous episode, he said to Jeremy and Damon that he killed all of Silas's followers, but then maybe those weren't the witches. Anyway, the story's a little wishy-washy. Cole, "Why are you so afraid of Silas?" And Cole says, "The witches told me that if Silas raises, he'll unleash hell on Earth. I happen to like Earth the way that it is." It sounds incredibly vague. Not sure if Cole is being intentionally vague or if he just doesn't actually know what Silas will do, and the witches just spooked him enough to be scared of him without actually knowing what he would do. And Elena says that's pretty biblical, and Cole's like, "Well, that's the other problem with people today. They've lost faith, and in that loss, they no longer know who they should fear." Okay. He's doing a lot of yapping, not making a lot of impact. We then go over to the Bennett house, where Bonnie is digging around in the living room looking through her phone. Rudy comes in, and Bonnie says, "I have to get to Elena. Have you seen my phone anywhere?" And Rudy says, "I've got your phone and your car keys, and I told you we're having a family meeting." Bonnie's like, "Is that something you read in a book? Because we've never never had a family meeting. And Rudy's like, I've let this go on long enough. Shane said that you and your magic are like a ticking time bomb. Oh, so now you're the one that's listening to Shane. And Rudy says, I lost your mother to witchcraft and I don't intend to lose you too. And Bonnie's like, it's not your life, it's mine. And Rudy, you don't have much of a leg to stand on. You can't be an absentee parent and then all of a sudden show up and try and tell your daughter, who's so independent, what she has to do. It just doesn't work that way. She doesn't have that level of respect for you. They then hear pounding at the front door and it's Jeremy. Rudy goes to answer it and Jeremy's like, is Bonnie there? And Rudy's like, she's busy. Jeremy barges inside and says, it's important. Bonnie then comes out to the entryway and is like, what's going on? And Jeremy says, Cole's in our house. And Bonnie's like, oh my God, okay, I have to go. And Rudy's like, you're not going anywhere. Bonnie uses her magic to burst a light bulb and says, stop telling me what to do. She goes with Jeremy to the front door to leave, but then Abby shows up blocking the entryway, flashing her vamp eyes and fangs and says, no one's going anywhere. Bonnie's shook because it's her mom, who's famously a deadbeat, who famously abandoned her last season, so she's surprised to see her. Rudy invites Abby in and Bonnie asks what she's doing there, and Abby says, your father called. Who's Professor Shane and what has he been teaching you? Once again, a neglectful absentee parent thinking that she can tell Bonnie what to do. You show up wanting to care, but it's a little too late. If you were maybe there for your daughter this whole time, who has no other witches in her life after her grams died, then you could have been helping her this whole time. You could have been preventing this from happening, Abby. But no, you want to show up at the last minute. And what pisses me off even more is that I guarantee that after Bonnie and Abby reunited last season and Bonnie wanted to work on their relationships and have her mother in her life again, if Abby didn't abandon her, then Bonnie would have never fell in the clutches of Shane. Because if she lost her gram and felt a disconnection to magic, she would still have her mother there to support her and lean on her and guide her. So Abby, you should have been here this whole time and then this wouldn't have happened. Jeremy tells Bonnie that they don't have time for this, but Rudy says this is a family matter. And Jeremy's like, my sister is in trouble. We need Bonnie's help. And Abby says, my daughter's done helping Elena Gilbert. Now get out. Now, I mean, I don't like Abby, but I agree with this. Bonnie's obviously helped Elena a lot. It's fair for Abby to feel this way because Abby was besties with Elena's mom, Miranda, and she put down Michael when he came to town looking for Elena, the doppelganger, for her bestie Miranda. That's why she lost her magic and abandoned Bonnie. I mean, you do have your own choices, of course, but essentially Abby probably has some disdain or some blame towards Elena for like what her family has done, not only to her, but to Bonnie. But Abby, you didn't have to abandon your daughter. That's on you. But you know what? I did forget another huge reason that Abby would be pissed at Elena, because Abby became a vampire last season because Damon and Stefan had to choose between whether they were going to kill Bonnie or turn Abby into a vampire because of Elijah threatening Elena's life. It was a whole thing, you remember. So yeah, Abby kind of is also a vampire indirectly because of Elena. So I think it's fair enough for her to say that her daughter's done helping Elena. But will Bonnie listen to her? Well, let's wait and see. Bonnie protests to Abby saying she has to go, but Abby says, answer my question. What lies has this professor been telling you? Jeremy is starting to get pissed off by this whole situation, and he's getting transfixed on Abby, getting into his hunter mode. You can kind of see it on his face. So he pulls a stake out of his pocket and goes to stake Abby, but luckily Abby grabs his arm, and Bonnie gets in front of Jeremy because she's his connection to his conscious, and she calms him down and says, don't, Jeremy, stop. Don't hurt her. She's my mom. Look at me. Okay, let's go. I'm right behind you. So Jeremy calms down, he leaves, but Bonnie doesn't actually leave with him. She just closes the front door, turns around and looks at her parents and says, you want to talk? Let's talk. We then go back to the Gilbert house, and Cole is looking at a picture frame of Elena and Jeremy, and Elena joins him with a bottle of wine, saying, so we're out of gin, but I think this is a good year. Cole says, what if I told you I don't believe you? And Elena's like, okay, you got me. I don't know anything about wine. She's playing her role pretty well, but Cole's coming on to her and says, it just seems so odd that you'd be willing to give up something you want so much. But Elena says, I would do anything for my brother, which is very believable, of course. And she says, besides, if what you're saying about Silas is true, what does it matter what I want if it puts everyone else in danger? Very Elena coded, very believable. Her whole thing is not wanting to put people in danger, and I'm sure Cole even knows that because she's always screaming it from the rooftops. But Cole just says, well, this has been enlightening. Thanks for the drinks. He goes to leave, and Elena freaks out because she's supposed to be stalling him and keeping him there. So she runs after him. He stops at the door frame and says, I'll take your request for a truce under order. He goes to leave, and Elena tries to stop him and says, is there a chance that you could be wrong about Silas? But all he says is, trust me, Elena, some things are better left buried. And he leaves. And Elena's like, well, shit. What are we gonna do now? We then go over to the Mystic Falls High School. Stefan and Rebecca enter the gym that's obviously empty because the dance was cancelled, but the decorations are still there. And Rebecca says, I think I saw a horror movie that started just like this. Did you know they play movies on TV all night long? Hundreds of them, so much better than those silly black and white picture shows we used to go to. She's doing the same enchanted baloney that Cole was doing. I don't know why they're hamming it up so much in this episode. Maybe it's just because it's an 80s themed episode, but like neither music nor movies were like invented in the 80s or colors in the 80s. Like, so I don't really understand the point of it. it, so I'm just gonna brush past it. So Stefan turns on the light and puts on some music and says, I don't know, I kind of miss the old ones. You got any requests for the DJ? While Stefan puts on the music, he looks at his phone to check a text from Matt that says he's still looking. So obviously Stefan is keeping Rebecca distracted. And I really love how they're keeping all the originals distracted in this episode and they don't even know. So before we go on, speaking of their outfits, Stefan is dressed in a leather jacket with patches all over it, very much giving Top Gun. And Rebecca is wearing a bowler hat with a mini dress. Not giving 80s much, she kind of phoned it in surprisingly, even though she had all those racks. But I think she mainly just cares about looking good. And she says about the music, I'll let you pick, nothing cheesy. And Stefan's like, well, that leaves out half of the decade. Hope you like The Cure. And Rebecca's like, huh, funny, which... Yes, it is. So Stefan puts on the Love Song by The Cure, which is that song that's like, you make me feel like I am young again. So Rebecca's like, was everything in the 80s so excessive? And Stefan's like, it had its charms. And then he lists off some of his favorite moments from the 80s, specifically Princess Bride and The Breakfast Club, you know, the classics. And Rebecca says, so it was just a decade of sentimental drivel as well. And Stefan's like, well, I was gonna say love, friendship, and the possibility of anything happening. You would have loved it. And Rebecca asks why that is. And Stefan says, because as much as we both hate to admit it, we care about those things. He's putting on the charm and it's working. He also gives her a little koala corsage as they dance. So these must have been really big in the 80s. And what's really funny about this is I've got a really good memory. And I remember my gran having one of these koala corsages in her house. So I don't know if it belonged to my mom or one of her siblings growing up, but I thought that was really cute. Funnily enough though, I live in Australia, the home of koalas, and I've never seen one of them here. But let me know, if you were alive in the 80s, were koala massages big back then? And they're dancing, and Rebecca's looking really like, oh my god, like, this is so cute. Like, he really just gets me, even though these are, like, pretty obvious traits of hers that she wants that simple human life. Anyway, we then go back to the Gilbert house. Jeremy comes inside, pointing his gun in case Cole's around, but Elena comes downstairs and says, I'm sorry, he left. I mean, I tried to stall as long as I could. The doorbell then rings, and Jeremy turns around to go open it, saying, that's Bonnie, she was right behind me. Well, she wasn't, Jeremy. Did you look back behind you once to check? Because when he opens the door, it's Cole, who is obviously eavesdropping and says, I've considered your request for a truce. Request denied. Elena slams the door in Cole's face, but Cole says, I'm sorry, I've already been invited in. And he kicks the door down, and when he gets inside, neither of them are there. And he says, all right, want to play hide and seek? Fine by me. And I think it was really smart of Cole to eavesdrop to see if Elena was truly being honest, because, I mean, he got his answer. Back at the Bennett's house, Bonnie is saying to Abby that Dad needs to mind his business. He had no right to call you here. Well, technically he did. He is your parent. They're both your parents at the end of the day. But Abby says, it's not just your father, Bonnie. Witches talk. Word gets around. Okay, so witches are gossiping about Bonnie learning expression from this creepy professor, and you only came now? Also, how do other witches know about this? I don't understand the witches' world. This is just something that Abby and Sheila always say whenever, like, Bonnie's like, how do you know that? They're like, witches talk. Okay. And Bonnie says, I found a new way to practice, okay? It's unconventional, but I can handle myself, I promise. Well, girl, you're clearly lying to yourself. And Rudy's like, that's not what Shane said. Again, Rudy, sounds like you really trust this man. And Bonnie's like, Shane's sitting in a jail cell right now. Are you really gonna take his word over mine? How about you guys take neither of each other's words? Abby's getting pissed and is like, I warned you about dark magic, Bonnie. Oh, did you, Abby? Maybe merely warning her about it once instead of being there for her, having an actual bond with her, doesn't exactly amount to much, now does it? Bonnie says, it's not dark magic, it's expression and I need it. I don't know why I love this line. I love this whole season, Bonnie just being like, it's my expression and I need it. Expression. Like, we're really hamming it up now. Now that she's like, knows she has it, she kind of just accepts it. It's like her expression is her draw, not to like trivialize people with addiction. Anyway, Bonnie can see how this sounds a little crazy, so she calms down and says to her mom, they found a cure, Mom. There's a cure for vampirism and I can do a spell to access it. I can save you, but I have to go now. Sure, Bonnie, now that you mention it, you could give the cure to your mother. Let's not act though like that was a motivation for you. You have not brought it up once. Bonnie goes to leave and Abby says, I'm not the one who needs to be saved. And she pulls out a powder from her pocket, puts it on Bonnie's mouth to knock her out. One thing about Abby, she's gonna knock her child out with drugs. She loves those incapacitating herbs, that's for sure. Back at the Salvatore house in the cellar, Klaus is trying to get a hold of Stefan on the phone, and he says, your brother's lack of communication is infuriating. And Damon's like, it's one of his trademarks, like his brooding and his hair. And Klaus is like, I don't understand what's taking so long. I mean, how hard is it to steal a dagger? Well, if it was that easy, Klaus, you would have done it yourself. And Damon's like, from a vampire who's been stabbed as many times as your sister, I'd say difficult. I love that because it's like she's been stabbed physically, yes, but also metaphorically in the back. Klaus tosses Damon another vial of blood and says, "You disappoint me, Damon. You're not trying very hard to get out of here. I expected more the daring escape artist, less the sell potato." It's just a funny thing to say. And Damon's like, "Well, I'm compelled to kill Jeremy, so I figured it's probably smarter to sit in here and chit-chat with you than burst out of here like the hell." I don't really understand why anyone needs to watch over Damon. If you just kept him weak enough in the cell locked, he's not going to get out. Klaus says, "How do you think Elena feels about this, by the way? Your inability to overcome Cole's compulsion for a single moment, even though it would mean saving the one person she loves the most in the world?" Obviously, Klaus likes to be messy and get in people's drama, but I think he was also offended by what Damon said earlier regarding Caroline, so I think he's trying to give Damon a jab. But Damon's not biting. He's not letting it affect him, and he just says, "Elena's met me. She knows impulse control is not my strong suit." Wouldn't that be more Stefan, because he's got no impulse control with blood? Well, I guess Damon's impulse control is like with his actions, but anyway, Klaus says, "Still, must be hard to live up to Stefan. I remember when I compelled him to feed off of Elena. He fought so hard, he actually managed to resist. Now that's love." And this is going to get Damon in the jugular because, of course, Damon can't help but compare himself to Stefan and Stefan and Elena's relationship. And this was an extremely beautiful, romantic, loving moment when Stefan fought so hard not to hurt the girl that he loved, fought hard against compulsion, which is practically near impossible. That episode, season 3, episode 5, The Reckoning, one of the most amazing episodes of the show. Love referencing it. And of course, how can we forget that Klaus loves Stefan? He's team Stefan, and even though the ship is sinking, he's staying on board, closing up those holes. And I feel you, Klaus. I mean, at this point, I've let go. Damon just scoffs and is like, "What do you know about love?" And Klaus says, "I know you're in love with Elena, but I think you're afraid of what might happen if we find the cure at the end of the rainbow. Personally, I don't see a fairy tale ending for the two of you. All I see is Stefan and Elena, and I think you see the same thing." This is Damon's biggest fear, and it shows on his face. So Klaus finally got to him, got his revenge. He's been trying to upset him all day, and it hasn't been working, but now it finally has. So Damon says nothing, and Klaus gets a phone call from Cole and says, "Well, if it isn't the happy homicidal maniac." And Cole on the other line in the Gilbert house says, "Did you know that your former darling blood bag and her brother are trying to kill me?" Klaus is obviously shocked by this, but Cole doesn't buy it and says, "Don't pretend you're not in on it. Your obsession to find the cure clearly trumps any sibling loyalty you once felt." Klaus insists he has no idea what he's talking about, and Cole says, "Well, I'm going to go rip Jeremy's arm off and kill Elena just for sport. Then I'm coming for you." So he's on a full-blown rampage. And then Elena shows up at the top of the stairs and shoots him with the crossbow, and Vamp speeds away, and the arrow goes back, and the arrow goes in Cole's leg, and he groans. We go back to Klaus, who is in the cell, and he grabs Damon by the neck, asking him what's going on. And Damon says, "I don't know, I've been stuck in penalty box with you since yesterday. Stefan won't talk to me, Elena won't come see me, so maybe you're right, maybe she's written me off." Klaus tries to compel Damon, but Damon repeats, "I told you, I don't know anything about a plan." So Klaus compels Damon to stay until he returns, and he Vamp speeds away, leaving the door open behind him, but he thinks it's fine because he's compelled Damon to stay. But then Damon says to himself, "I will stay here until you return." And then he looks down at the water bottle that Stefan had given him and says, "Or not," and then he Vamp speeds away. And like, I don't really understand the point of this, because A, he doesn't go anywhere, B, why would Stefan give Damon vervain, and C, where did he get it from? I don't really know. This whole scene makes no sense. So I realized while editing this that Stefan didn't give Damon vervain intentionally. It's because Rudy, the mayor, dumped vervain in the water supply. So that's how Damon ingested vervain. But this actually ended up being a good thing, because otherwise he would have been trapped in that cell at the mercy of Klaus, which wouldn't really have worked for future things. When we get to it, you'll get what I mean by that. But yeah, that's the point of it. Filming Luke, or scripting Luke, somehow did not put 2 and 2 together, but editing Luke did. So we got there in the end. We then go back to the gym to the 80s decade dance party of 2. Rebecca is kicking around some balloons, twirling, having fun, while Wanted, Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi plays. We know Stefan loves him some Bon Jovi. He comes back with a bottle of alcohol and says, "It's amazing what you can find stashed away in the teacher's lounge." What is going on with the teachers at Mystic Falls High? Or is it just one of Alaric's many bourbon bottles that he had stashed around the school? They drink, and Rebecca says, "This song's not as terrible as the other ones." And Stefan's like, "This song is the godfather of rock anthems." Rebecca smiles and says, "What's going on with you? You're fun tonight." I love how everyone's so surprised when Stefan's being fun. And what's even funnier is he's actually not being fun for the sake of being fun. He's playing you. Stefan says, "I can't listen to this music without thinking of my best friend Lexi. We spent most of the 80s together. I remember this one time she snuck us backstage and compelled half the band to do tequila shots with us before the show." I love hearing about Lexi, and I love Stefan and Lexi's friendship, so this was really cute. And Stefan says, "Lexi was fearless, a lot like you." Don't insult Lexi like that, please. But I know why Stefan's doing this. He's doing this because he wants to like compliment Rebecca. He's like, "This person who I love so much and is so amazing, you remind me of her." Like, he's just buttering her up constantly. But respectfully, don't insult Lexi by comparing her to Rebecca. Rebecca's like, "So, did you sleep with her too? Damn, getting jealous about someone who's not even here. Stefan says, no, it wasn't like that. I was just a better person when I was with her. I didn't think I'd ever feel that way again. It kind of seems like Stefan's implying that he feels that way now with Rebecca. But to Rebecca's defense, she does look past this comment and said, you didn't feel that way until Elena? And Stefan's like, yeah, until Elena. And now that's over. He looks really upset, and Rebecca says, that look right there? That's why I don't let myself care. Rebecca, we all know that's not true, please. And Stefan even says the same thing. A balloon then pops and Stefan gets a fry, but Rebecca smiles and says, don't worry, I'll protect you if Cole tracks his way down to this abandoned dance. And she pulls down her leg warmer to show the dagger hidden in there. So this is smart of her to keep it on her, keep it hidden. But of course, this is interesting to Stefan because he's like, damn, I've had Matt looking for it this whole time and it was here this whole time. Rebecca says she's going to choose the next song and she goes to Stefan's phone that's like connected to the DJ setup. But Stefan intercepts us because he obviously doesn't want Rebecca looking at his phone and seeing the plan and the text and stuff. So he's like, no, you know what? I got a better idea. This way. And he points to the hallway. Rebecca goes and Stefan goes and grabs his phone and quickly texts Matt, R has dagger. Get here now. Rebecca looks back and says, well, you coming? Girl, aren't you wondering why he keeps like texting on his phone and staying back? Like, let's use a bit of critical thinking. We then go back to the Gilbert house. Elena is in her room and she's pushing her dresser against the door to kind of barricade herself in there so that Cole can't get in. But Cole is pushing against the door and he's able to overpower her, shove the door open, and Elena vamp speeds through her Jack and Jill bathroom that she shares with Jeremy's room and she's locking all the doors behind her, but Cole manages to smash his way through each door. But luckily Jeremy's there with his handy dandy crossbow and he shoots 2 stakes at Cole, but he catches one in each hand. But because he's got both hands covered, that does allow Elena to shoot him with a bunch of wooden bullets. Jeremy and Elena are kind of slaying. I love the sibling fighting duo, and we don't get to see Elena fight that often, so it's fun. Elena tells Jeremy to run, so he does, but she should have as well, because Cole gets back up and throws one of the stakes that he had into Elena's leg. And while she's trying to get that out of her leg, Cole runs out to the hallway to catch up with Jeremy and throws him down the stairs. He goes to attack Jeremy, but Elena chokes him from behind, but Cole then throws Elena against the wall, rips out a wooden banister from the staircase, and stabs Elena through the stomach all the way into the wall, so she's like stuck against the wall. Like, it's really bad. Elena looks super choked up and she can't move. And while she's pinned down, this allows Cole to grab Jeremy and drag his body down the stairs. And Elena is struggling to break free, watching as Cole just drags Jeremy away. It's really intense, and this is a really fun fight sequence. Kind of underrated, actually. I always forget about it, but whenever I rewatch it, I'm like, I like this. We then go back to the high school where Stefan is in the hallway teaching Rebecca how to do the Breakfast Club slide. And she resists, saying it's like goofy, but he's like, come on, just have fun. And she's charmed and she does it, but it doesn't quite work. And Stefan's like, you know what? It's the boots. That's why you can't slide. Take them off. He's obviously trying to get the dagger off her so he can give it to Matt, who we see hiding behind some lockers watching them. But Rebecca doesn't take off her boots. Instead, she just pulls down her leg warmer, takes out the dagger, and hands it to Stefan. He's surprised and she's like, this is what you want, right? Go ahead, take it. So Stefan's kind of giving Rebecca a questioning look like, oh, were you onto me? Like, did you know that I wanted to use the dagger on you? But he doesn't dagger her. Instead, he listens to her when Rebecca really earnestly says, I do want stupid koala corsages and a prom. I want to have kids with someone who loves me enough to stand outside my window with a stupid boombox. I want to be human. So this is ultimately what she wants. Obviously, she was saying earlier in like last episode or the episode before that she wants the cure so she could shove it down Klaus's throat. What she really wants is to be human and have that normal human life. We've been knowing this about Rebecca. She was always envious of Elena when she was human, and she's always wanting to do these human things. Like, she joined the cheerleading squad. She wanted to have friends. She'd have parties. Like, she wanted to go to prom. Like, it makes sense that this is the kind of stuff that she wants. But now Rebecca reveals that she actually didn't know what their plan was. Instead, she thought that Stefan was trying to get the dagger for Cole, which, like, is what he was originally supposed to be doing. So Rebecca says, so let Klaus put down my brother and let's go find the cure. She's tearing up and it's really sweet. And you can tell Stefan's really touched by this. So he's not going to dagger her anymore. And he really is like starting to look like he's developing some sort of feelings towards Rebecca. So he looks at Matt, looks back at Rebecca, and he puts the dagger in his pocket, puts his arm around Rebecca and says, let's go home. And Matt's like, wait, what the hell? So do we have a budding Stefan and Rebecca relationship? Who knows? Stefecca. Reffin? I don't really know. Wanted, dead or alive. We then go back to the Bennett house. Bonnie is laying unconscious on the couch. Abby is making something with herbs. And Rudy says, you're drugging her? And Abby says, just enough until I can get some witches to come here and clean her mind from that poison that professor's been teaching her. Sounds like a very solid plan. Finally, someone helping her. The witches are going to cleanse her mind. But it doesn't exactly work out because Bonnie wakes up. I guess she's too strong for those herbs. And she's behind Abby and says, that's not happening. Abby's like, Bonnie, please. But Bonnie uses her expression magic on her mother. She's literally torturing her mother. It's very disturbing to see. The expression is clearly changing Bonnie, because Bonnie is usually like a very moral person, someone who doesn't want to hurt people, especially the people she loves, so it's kind of terrifying. And Bonnie says, I don't belong to the spirits anymore. I belong to myself. I don't belong to anyone. And she just walks away. And Abby and Rudy are shook. They're like, damn, what are we gonna do now? But Bonnie, I hate to say it because as things stand, you kind of belong to Shane because we remember what that witch said in episode 8 in New Orleans to Damon and Stefan? Expression cannot exist without swallowing everything whole. It will eventually get to a point where this would kill you or kill other people. And Shane knows how to defuse it. So it's looking scary for Bon Bon. We then go back to the Gilbert house. Elena is still staked to the wall with the banister, struggling to pull herself off, but eventually she does manage to free herself. Luckily, because downstairs Cole has tied Jeremy to the kitchen island and he's got a meat cleaver in his hand. And he says, now, like I said, I don't fancy the hunter's curse, so I'm just gonna chop off your arm. But don't worry, I'll heal you right up with a bit of blood after. Sorry about the sting. Now, which arm is it? Is it the left or the right? I'll just chop off both to be safe. He's being silly with it. He's having fun. Hope it was worth it because he's wasting a lot of time. He could have chopped off both arms and both legs by now if he didn't give his stupid little speech. But alas, he finally gets to it. Cole raises the meat cleaver in the air to chop off Jeremy's arm, but then Elena comes vamp speeding into the room and shoves the meat cleaver into Cole's shoulder, pitting him back against the kitchen cabinet. And at this point, Jeremy's managed to untie himself, so I'm not sure why he didn't try before. Like, how good were those knots, really? But he does something that's really tea. He grabs the kitchen tap hose, you know how like some taps can come out like that, and he sprays the water at Cole, which of course we know the water is filled with vervain, so it burns him and incapacitates him. And at this point, because he's so like disheveled, Elena manages to grab the white oak stake out of Cole's pocket. She tosses it to Jeremy, and Jeremy stakes Cole in the heart with the white oak stake. Cole screams as his body lights on fire and he hits the floor and his body burns and the screaming stops. So Cole Michelson is officially dead. Yeah, who cares? I mean, like I said, I love the earlier fight sequence. I love this fight sequence. And if this wasn't gaggy enough, Elena and Jeremy look up ahead at the front door to see Klaus standing there with tears in his eyes as he watches his brother die and presumably watch the whole thing. And Elena and Jeremy are just standing there like aghast and just like, oh, hey, hi. How y'all doing? Klaus says, what did you do? And Elena's like, we didn't have a choice. He was trying to cut off Jeremy's arm. And Klaus says, lies. He would have never gotten inside if you hadn't set a trap for him. Which true, but a lot of this does fall on Cole's stupidity because he came back to the house. He could have killed Elena and he chose not to. And that's why she was able to come down and stop him from chopping Jeremy's arm. He also could have chopped Jeremy's arm off if he didn't waste his time with his speech. He also didn't have to bring the white oak stake with him or at least make it so visible. Like Cole, he acted very stupid today. Like, he was not behaving like someone who wanted to stay alive, and I think he just really underestimated the Gilberts. Elena says, well, you said you were going to put him down too. Now, Elena, you know damn well what he meant. Klaus was not going to kill his brother. He was just going to dagger him. And Klaus screams, I was going to make him suffer on my terms. He's so pissed off and over it at this point, and he looks around and says, I'm going to burn this house to the ground, and then when you flee for your lives, I'll kill you both without blinking. And Jeremy says, if you kill us, you'll never get to the cure. You'll never be able to make any more hybrids. And Klaus gives a manic laugh and says, you really think I care for an instance about my bloody hybrids? Well, yeah, because it's kind of like the only thing you've ever spoken about since you came into these people's lives. Hybrids, I want my hybrid army. I'm gonna make my own family of hybrids, like blah, 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 blah. Like, so yeah, I think people do think you care about this. But Klaus just says, I wanted the cure so I could destroy it. I would have killed you all the second we dug it up, but now I'm just gonna watch you burn instead. So this is really interesting because Klaus is trying to claim that his original motivator for wanting to find the cure was to destroy it so it couldn't be used against him. But our gang wouldn't even know about the cure if it wasn't for you. You're the one who told Stefan about the cure. Like, you're the one who was so curious about Connor the Hunter and the Five. So I think it did originally begin with Klaus wanting the cure to turn Elena into a human to make hybrids, and then maybe it morphed into something different when it got a bit complicated. Or maybe he wanted to cure Elena to be human and then destroy the rest of the cure so they couldn't be used against him. Or like cure Elena, make her human, kill everyone else. Like, I don't really know, but I do know that it originally started with the motivation of wanting hybrids. That's for sure. But I think finally after this, we can say that Klaus is done with hybrids and over it. Which, oh, you know what? Maybe he stopped caring about having hybrids once his 12 hybrids betrayed him. But then in episode 10, he said, I'm going to need that cure, hybrid shortage and all. But then maybe that was him covering his tracks. because his motivations changed. Damn, I don't know. You're a complicated man, Klaus. I don't know. His motivations just must have changed, because if you were afraid of people using the cure on you, then why would you tell them about it in the first place? But anyway, when Klaus finishes his speech about how he wants to burn this house down, he starts screaming in pain and falls to his knees, and his bones start breaking. So that's obviously caused by our expression queen, Bonnie, who comes walking into the house, and she's using her expression to torture Klaus. And she tells Elena and Jeremy to invite Klaus in. They're like really apprehensive at first for like obvious reasons, but they trust Bonnie, and Jeremy invites Klaus in. He vamp speeds into the house, and Bonnie tells them to get to the living room. So they do. Klaus vamp speeds into the living room to follow them, and Bonnie tells them kitchen. So they then go into the kitchen. Klaus vamp speeds to follow them there, but then Klaus can't get past an invisible barrier. He's like banging against it, and we hear that noise that we heard in the tomb, or when vampires can't be invited in. Jamie grabs the white oak stake from Cole's burnt up body, because of course we remember with this white oak stake, it was made by Esther to be indestructible, so it will not burn in the body of its victims. Very handy to have that. Obviously they can't use it on Klaus, because then they will all die along with him. Klaus is kind of in their second living room, like the den, I guess, the one that has the TV, and then he goes to try and go in the other living room, the front living room where Bonnie is, and he can't get in there. So he's trapped in this one room, and he's screaming, banging the barrier. It's quite funny. Klaus is naturally very pissed off, and he says to Bonnie, "Witch, you can't do this to me." Well, she just did. And Bonnie says, "You have no idea what I can do now." Klaus screams, "I will hunt all of you to your end." The three of them leave, and Klaus is screaming, "Do you hear me?" So he's just trapped in there. Very slay of Bonnie. Finally a good use of that expression. This was a cool move. We then go to Rebecca's house. She's crying after Stefan told her the news about Cole being dead. And Stefan's like, "They didn't have a choice, Rebecca. Cole started this when he came after Jeremy. He went after you too, remember? I mean, he was never gonna let us find the cure." And Rebecca's like, "So you knew. This whole night you knew." And Stefan's like, "I'm not gonna let the people I care about get hurt. Not Jeremy, not Elena, not even Damon." What do you mean not even Damon? As if there's a world where you'd be okay with Damon being killed. Come on, Stefan. I know you're mad at him, but like, that's your brother. Stefan says to Rebecca, "And you can hate me for it, but now Cole can't hurt you either. And I want us to find this cure together. You and me. Not just for Elena, but for you. So you can have what you want. So you can be who you want. You could be human again. Everyone deserves a second chance, right?" And she asks him, "Why should I trust you?" Look, it's a fair question after everything that's happened. And Stefan says, "I don't know. I guess I could give you my word, but at the end of the day, you're just gonna have to take a leap." Rebecca is upset by this. Of course, one of her brothers died. Again. But you know what? At least it's not her favorite brothers. Like, her favorite brother is Elijah, obviously. And then Klaus, reluctantly. So, it's Cole. It's Finn. Like, it's sad, but she'll get over it. And ultimately, I think being close with Stefan and the possibility of still getting the cure softens the blow. And she's probably just happy not to be daggered. And at the end of the day, Rebecca wants the cure for like pure reasons, so she's a much better Michelson ally for our gang as opposed to Klaus. Because she wants the cure for the same reason they all do, to be able to use it to become human if that's what they want. We then go over to the Salvatore house where our gang is congregating. Jeremy is pacing back and forth, looking at his arms, saying, "Ugh, it didn't work." But Bonnie tells him it took time for Finn's line to die off, remember? It'll work, just give it time. And Jeremy's like, "What if it doesn't?" Damon then enters and is like, "Where's that Gilbert optimism?" So he's no longer compelled by Cole, obviously, because Cole's dead, and he was not compelled to stay in the cell by Klaus because he was on Vervain. So I guess the point was that he didn't have to stay in the cell. But then what was he doing this whole time? Just hanging until everyone showed up, waiting for an entrance line? Whatever. After he comes in, Elena looks at him, smiling, so happy to see him. He goes over to her and says, "Sorry, I missed all the excitement." And she hugs him. It's cute, but it's also kind of like, get a room, Jeremy and Bonnie are kind of like, so anyway. Stefan then comes through the front door, and Elena and Damon see him, and they stop hugging. It's really awkward. And Stefan's like, "Well, guess I didn't miss much." "I got the Silas headstone," he says as he's holding a huge hunk of rock, so he obviously got that from Rebecca. Elena says, "We're just waiting for Jeremy's mark to grow." Meanwhile, Klaus is trapped in our living room, and Bonnie says, "Temporarily, I drew on the new moon to bind the spell. We got 3 days to find the cure. 4, max. So, if you no longer need the spirits, or nature, or anything like that, and all you need is expression, why are you drawing on the full moon? Why are you drawing on the new moon?" Sounds like natural magic, Bonnie. I don't know if it's a plot hole. Who knows? I feel like if it was expression, she should be able to keep him there as long as she wants. But I don't know. The writers got lazy with that one. Season 4 is complicated. We can give them a break. Jeremy says if we don't find the cure by then, we might as well look up Catherine Pierce and see if she wants some company in hiding, because Klaus will come after us. Bit of a Catherine shout out. Missed that queen. Interesting. Also, wondering if Catherine's keeping up with everything that's going on with the gang. Surely she would love to know that Elena and Stefan broke up, right? We have not seen Catherine since season 3, episode 9. Miss her. What's she up to? Elena says, we'll find the cure. Now that we got Rebecca taken care of, all we need is Professor Shane and then we'll have everything we need. Stefan's like, yeah, I didn't dagger Rebecca. Elena's shocked and asks why not, and Stefan's like, I didn't need to. She's on our side. And Elena's like, on our side? Did you really just say that? And Stefan's like, yeah, she handed over the headstone. I mean, she wants to find this cure more than any of us. And I do feel like Stefan kind of cares about Rebecca, kind of thinks she's a good ally. But you gotta wonder if part of him is also being aligned with her to piss Elena off. Because it's working. Because Elena and Rebecca are sworn enemies. And Elena's like, why would you possibly think that we could trust her? And Damon's like, let me guess, brother. She pled her allegiance to you while you were naked in the sack. I hate that phrase, like the sack, referring to sex. Like, are we talking about the ball sack? Anyways, it's very much giving pot kettle Damon. You too slept with Rebecca to get back at Elena. He's being very messy and he couldn't help himself. And honestly, Stefan's been kicking him a lot while he's down. So he kind of wanted to get back up and get his lick back. And it works because Elena looks shocked. Stefan looks kind of ashamed and then pissed off. And let's be honest though, Stefan, you did want Elena to find this out. But he just says to Damon, I bet you were dying to get that out, weren't you? And he was. And Damon sarcastically says, oh, I'm sorry. Was that supposed to be a secret? Maybe you should have made that a little clearer while you were bleeding me out dry in our cellar. Well, Damon, don't be such a baby. It literally was 2 days and he was giving you vials of blood. He could have left you there with nothing. Stefan says, yeah, I did that to keep you from killing Jeremy. They're like arguing back and forth and Elena's like, guys, stop. This isn't you. Girl, the bickering is because of you, respectfully, so stop. I love how she always says she doesn't want to get between them and now she's physically, metaphorically, emotionally, and mentally between them. And Stefan says to Damon, why don't you tell her to calm down, Damon? You've managed to use that sire bond pretty well so far, haven't you? Gagged him. Shitted on him. I love bitchy Stefan. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit, but you can't help but whip out a sire bond insult. And Damon takes the bait because he punches Stefan in the face. Stefan falls to the ground looking pissed, and he gets back up. He's about to swing at Damon, but then they all get distracted because Jeremy's like, you know what? I feel like I'm gonna make this about me real quick. No, I'm kidding. They all get distracted because Jeremy screams. They turn to look at him and he is like looking down at his body and he rips off his shirt like he's the Hulk and he's screaming like, and we see the hunter's mark that was originally just on his hand and wrist grow all the way up his body. The whole hunter's mark and map to the cure completes. It's very gaggy. And they're all like, oh my God. And Jeremy's like, wait, you can see this? Because before they couldn't, but I guess when it completes, everyone can. And it's a very cool moment. The music swells, his mark's complete, everyone's gagged, and the camera zooms in on Damon's face and he smiles and says, here we go. And that is the end of the episode and the end of the 3 episodes that I will be discussing in the Hunter's Mark / Expression chapter covering season 4, episode 10, 11, and 12 of the Vampire Diaries. This has been such a fun set of episodes. I feel like besides After Special, because I always remember loving After School Special with Rebecca, taunting everyone and getting her revenge. I always forget how much I like these 2 other episodes, A View to Kill, which we just covered, and the last episode, Catch Me If You Can. This is a really fun little time where we lead up to going to the island, trying to find the cure, where everyone's like getting all their ducks in a row. We're having alliances forming. Like, we have so much of the originals. Like, I just really had a lot of fun scripting these episodes, talking about them with you guys. I've been having fun editing them. Just had a lot of fun. And I'm really excited to get into the next couple episodes because the next 3 episodes, if you've watched, is all about getting the cure, going on the island. It's very like an adventure kind of situation. I think it's very adventuristic and it's a lot of fun. We go on location. We do follow some characters still at home in Mystic Falls, and some crazy shit happens in the next 3 episodes. So I feel like we've built up to it really well. And I'm glad that there was like less discussions of the sire bond in a way that wasn't as annoying. I feel like we could poke fun at it. I like how we focused on Jeremy's mark and how that affected Damon and Elena's relationship and Damon being worried about morality. I loved focusing a lot more on Bonnie's expression. And I'm so happy that, we are finally having characters, well, not really the friends yet. They don't really know what's going on with it. When you think about it, though, Bonnie's storyline is really isolated. It's like with her parents and Shane and Sheriff Forbes. Like, do any of these people know how bad expression is for Bonnie right now? I guess not, because they're so self-absorbed. But I love how much we got to focus more on Bonnie and that the expression storyline is really ramping up and getting exposed. I love how Shane's being exposed. I love how, we're getting more stuff about Bonnie's family. They're just treating Bonnie like a bit better, like they're giving her some more storylines, and I'm glad for that. And I also love bitchy Stefan, and I like Stefan and Rebecca's little stint. I think it's funny, I think it's entertaining, I think it creates for some interesting stuff within the fractured love triangle. I think the way that Stefan's interacting with Elena is very different and funny, and I really like it. I'm not gonna lie, Elena was very annoying these 3 episodes. Not gonna lie about that. Like I said, I love the original's involvement. This is just a really fun set of 3 episodes. Really great build up to like the midpoint of the season, and I'm having a lot of fun. I feel like with doing these videos is making me realize how much I love season 4, because I've always thought season 2 was my favorite season, closely followed by season 3 and then season 4. But I don't know, season 4's got a lot in it. It's really jam-packed. It's really fun. But that's it for me in this video. I feel like I'm just stalling because I don't want this to end. This has been so fun. But if you want to watch more content from me, I do my sister series on Patreon where we actually watch scenes together and break down storylines and characters and that kind of stuff. I recently posted one all about the Sire Bond, so I'll be making a video where I go more in depth in these episodes and actually watch those scenes together pretty shortly. And the next video in this series will be covering the next 3 episodes of season 4. Like I said, all about getting the cure and going to the island and maybe waking up Silas, who knows, all that kind of stuff. That'll be coming shortly. I'm really gonna try to be posting these season 4 videos closer together, and then I'll do 2 more videos for season 4. So one of them will cover 4 episodes, and then the next one will cover the last 4 episodes of season 4. So you got 3 more videos after this for season 4 of the Vampire Diaries. I know it's a lot. We're doing 8 videos for season 4 of the Vampire Diaries, but I feel like there's just so much to say, so much about the show changes, and I also feel like I wanted to go more in depth with like the latter parts of the show, because I feel like I've heard from a lot of people that they stopped watching after season 3, so I thought it would be fun to like go in more depth with the parts of the show for people who aren't as familiar with it, because I rewatched the first 3 seasons a lot, and then I'm kind of like, yeah, I watched season 4, 5, and 6 a bit, and then I just barely touched season 7 and 8. So anyway, like I said, I'm just rambling because I didn't want this to end. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe and turn on the post notifications bell if you haven't already so you don't miss another video from me. Share this video with a friend who you think might enjoy it. And once again, thank you so much to ZBiotics for sponsoring this video. If you click the link in my description, you can get 15% off your first order of ZBiotics pre-alcohol with free shipping and a 100% money-back guarantee. They are a great product. I love using them. And thank you so much for sponsoring this video, ZBiotics. And thank you so much to all of you for watching this video. Thank you for sticking with me with this series. It takes a lot of time and it's a lot of effort, but you know, your comments make it worth it. I love chatting with you guys. But anyway, enough rambling from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you in my next one. And as always, I hope that you have a great day or night wherever you are in the world. Bye.